Welcome to Holdback Rack Podcast. My name is Jessica Hare. I operate Hare Hollow Farm, and we breed boas, balls, and select colubrids.
Hi, I'm Jana King. I operate ASM Royal Tails, and I breed high-end ball pythons.
We want to share our journey navigating herpetoculture and are dedicated to promoting biohazard safety for all species. And we would love you to answer the question, what's in your holdback rack? Episode 33. Jana.
33.
Do you feel 33 years old?
I'm older than 33, and I didn't feel my age, and now all of a sudden I feel real old. So. Yes, I feel my age.
This is a not safe for work podcast.
Oh, yeah. Hey, and I didn't drop any bad words the first 30 seconds. Do I get an A+ and a gold star?
2 gold stars.
I'm actually 35. Am I allowed to ask how old you are?
I never actually remember how old I am.
I only remember how old I am because I had my second child at 30, and so at whatever age she turns is the age I'm turning.
Easy math.
Easy math. Yeah, plus 30, Yeah. So, yeah, we'll see. Next year, maybe I won't feel my age. It's going to be an interesting one. I got all signed up for school, and classes start in June, so that'll be interesting.
I have very soft feelings about higher education. I won't ruin your...
Did you get your master's or just your bachelor's?
Master's.
That's what I thought. Okay, you have a master's. Everybody keeps asking if I'm excited, and what human is excited about Math 101 and English 101 at 35 years old? What human? Like how?
Why didn't you take those ones as online only classes?
They are.
I'm curious.
That's because I'm going to have my kids full time on the summer. I had to take 2 classes I could take online.
All right, that makes more sense.
Because I can't be on campus during the summer with 3 kids.
The poor returning students when I was in school that were like much older, they're like, God, everyone's 22 and nubile and hot, and you're like, these people don't want to be here. I can tell. They're all really uncomfortable. God bless those people.
I'm not looking forward to that. I don't know. When I was young and I did like medical assisting, my year tech degree, I was young and adorable and bouncy and had all this energy. And now I'm going to be like the grouchy old lady that is, a little bit bitter and hardened by the world and a little bit like, I don't have time for your high school drama bullshit, so don't even fucking talk to me. Like, I remember those ladies from my class, and I was like, they suck the fun out of the universe. And so I'm going to be a fun sucker probably for the first time ever in my life. And I'm not sure how I feel about that. But, also, I have 3 kids, and I got to take this seriously so I can get into the nursing programs. I'm not looking forward to that part about being the old lady on campus in the fall. So we'll see. I'll update you all on how that goes. Stay tuned for the end of September.
It's going to be fun-ish.
It's going to be fun.
My short statement on higher education is none of it has anything to do with education. As always, it's just a series of check boxes to signal that you're good at following the rules. So just follow the rules and do what they tell you to do, and you'll do great.
Yep, we'll see. I'll either do great or it's going to be a train wreck. I don't really do halfway, so there it is. You want to give a little Jessica update, or are you going to wait till the end?
No, I don't feel like talking about it. The house hasn't sold, and fuck me. That's about it. All right, let's talk about our topic today. It's allelic complexes in ball pythons. I thought we should roll back a little bit to what are the definitions of what we're actually talking about. And I am not I am a pedant. Fuck, let's just be honest. But I'm not that hard on hobby lingo because who gives a fuck? I don't know.
You're really tolerant, especially considering your degree. You're very tolerant.
The hobby is full of mouth breathers and trailer trash and basement dwellers. It's okay that they use the word super. I don't care. It's fine. They're conveying a particular meaning. Most people understand that to mean homozygosity for a particular gene, and it's fine. But we're going to go through some of the definitions of what we're talking about, the hobby lingo, and then we'll get into the allelic complexes in ball pythons. And hopefully this is sort of an intro level, but maybe we can sprinkle in some stuff that's more appropriate to someone who already knows all this, basically, to make it more interesting. It might be a little bit 101-ish, so that could be boring. I don't know. Skip to the next episode. Fuck. Jana, what's a gene?
So what is a gene? A gene is the basic unit of heredity. It's a segment of nucleotides. You have a pair of each set of genes, one from each parent. Gene code for protein, but 99% of DNA is not coding. Of the non-coding DNA, some of it is relictual, and some of it has important functions in the cells. Promoters, enhancers, silencers, structural elements, telomeres,
Telomeres, yeah. People generally understand what a gene is. They think it's something that does something in an animal. So most of what you just read doesn't matter. A gene is a functional unit of heredity. So the gene could be the gene that's actually coding for a protein, or the gene could be one of the structural elements or one of the parts that's like a promoter. So if there's a mutation in the promoter, even though the coding part that's coding for a DNA is perfectly fine, the promoter's mutation might mean that that region doesn't ever even get transcribed into RNA and then a protein. So it doesn't really matter. None of this information matters. But
wait. For those of us in the back without a master's degree, can you
this is high school biology, by the way. This is not master's degree.
Okay. Well, 100,000 years ago when I was in high school, half my life ago.
Yep.
I don't think I took biology in high school. Anyway, not important. It's saying that some of the gene codes are for important functions, and so sometimes our genes that we're breeding also coding those important functions, like super black pastel, which is prone to kinking and facial deformities. I was just curious if that is because it's on the different. Not only is it doing like a visual coding, it's also on different structures like facial deformity, whatever.
So you're asking the right question, but just think you don't asking the right question. So a protein or an enhancer region or a promoter or whatever, when I say structures, I'm talking about the structure of the DNA at this point. But a protein or whatever in DNA is often used for like 10 things. We know that this protein is good for all kinds of functions. Like it makes whatever, a sodium channel.
I feel like we've talked about this a little bit with boas and why some aren't good boa genes, because it completely destroys important functions in the boa.
Yeah, so every time you have a point mutation that causes sort of an aesthetic change in the color of the animal, you are potentially also changing other things about the fundamental biology of the animal. Unless that mutation is exclusively something that has to do with melanocyte functionality, then there are probably other knock-on effects. So that's why 20 years ago, they were like, I don't think we can have a 5-gene ball python because it'll probably die.
So that has been the experience with boas.
I think the problem with boas is the genes that code for pattern distribution that we can mutate and have a visual effect also are too closely tied and used into muscle distribution and development.
Okay. I was just trying to see if I understood that correctly in relation to reptile breeding.
Yes, you are correct. But the problem is no one, until you go and look biochemically what's going on, I can't say for sure why a super black is a
right
defective.
Until we code the genes and like they're doing right now with the DNA sequencing and stuff, right?
Right, but even then, just because you know the sequence that has been affected, you don't know what it's doing. We don't know most of what's going on in people.
So even if we have the sequencing information, we don't know what that means yet.
Yeah, not for probably ever.
Oh, okay.
The biochemistry of living things is insanely complicated, and it's almost
I know.
For no reason.
What is an allele, Jessica?
So an allele is just a gene variant. Allele doesn't have any more particular meaning than that. The word is used a lot in the hobby, and that's fine, but it just means it's a different kind of the gene. But it doesn't imply good or bad or the location, and it doesn't imply coding region or non-coding region. It's just a different of the same space. And so the space on a genome is the actual physical location is called a locus or loci for plural. That word is almost not really that necessary, but people know it and talk about it. It's just a particular region on a genome.
So you're saying that an allele is not, so it is a particular region or a location on, so when we say like these genes are allelic, we're saying that they're in the same location.
They are literally the same gene at the same location. Locus means like it's both of the same thing. Like this point in the chromosome physically, once you unravel it, is that location. Base pair number 72. I don't know. But the gene is the whole thing at that locus point. So it could be 400 base pairs long or something on both sides. And the allele is any variant of that gene.
Okay.
That's all. We're doing great. Since you have a pair of any one gene, you can only ever have a maximum of 2 alleles of that gene.
Yeah, there's actually like a really good YouTube video that's explaining this. Robert Barklow, Royal Balls, he does this like visual presentation. So if you're a visual person, look him up on YouTube, and he has an allelic combination video that you guys can watch if you need to see it visually. But anyway, we're going to move on. So you can only have 2 of a particular gene.
And if you have more, you have major problems. If you're like a triploid or something, you'll be a monstrosity. Unless you're a salamander, then you might be fine.
And if both your alleles of a gene are the same, you're homozygous. But in the hobby speak, that's a super.
Yeah, like I said, the word doesn't hurt my feelings. Yes, it doesn't mean anything, but hobbies are full of dumb shit, so who cares, right? It's way better than Dame.
The only problem that I have is that some people insist on using the correct scientific terms, and then some people use hobby speak. And for me, I'm like, fucking pick one, okay? Like, I can handle either, but then when like you're throwing them around and you're like intermixing them, it's too much for my brain. Like, I need it to be one way, or I need it to be
We've definitely had episodes where we were doing both of us, almost
for sure.
equally.
And it's
so who cares?
Crappy, or you're like correcting me because I'm like, oh fuck, wait, what are you talking about again? It's crazy.
I mean, if you're going to default to one, you should default to the correct one, which is the scientific one. But I don't care. Okay. I just think, there's fucking 300 base genes. The hobby is complicated and hard. We just have to transition people up the hobby as best we can. But you should know both the stupid hobby vernacular and the scientific vernacular to be in the I don't know. It's like not hard. They're just words. I'm pretty blasé on this is not a grinds my gear.
Yeah. So a visual clown is homozygous. For the clown, you put mutant. Is it not mutation?
This is a hobby vernacular problem. So we use the word mutation to mean
a gene.
Both, just any gene. Technically, the genes that are broken are mutant alleles of a gene is one of the wild type versions of it.
Oh, okay. That makes sense.
So I called it a mutant here.
Okay, so the visual clown is homozygous for the clown mutant, aka a super. So in the hobby, when we call things like recessive or not recessive, you're saying they're all homozygous.
It's okay, again, as usual, to let people tamp down on calling Mojaves het bells because it confuses people. Because they might try to sell normals as het Mojaves or something. You know what I mean?
Yes.
So the hobby sort of perspective that we should only refer to things as heterozygous or homozygous when it's a recessive, to not confuse people when we're talking about incomplete dominant mutant alleles, that's fine. It's just not true. We're just doing that to like protect people from their own confusion. But I think people are smart, so you guys can do it. If you want to call a clown homozygous clown, heterozygous Mojave, homozygous bell, whatever the bell composition is, that's just fine. We're all adults here. Are you an adult, Jana?
Maybe today.
Okay, yes. Today, Jana's an adult, so we can do it. It's okay. It's okay to have the hobby vernacular, and it's okay to elevate that vernacular.
I'm working on it. I would like to have the appropriate scientific vernacular, but I'd also like it to not get jumbled when I try to translate it to so if I'm talking about it one way, I'm okay. So if I'm using like the scientific stuff, like I can get it straight. And then when I try to like translate it into the hobby speak, that's when my brain just kind of like explodes. And then I'm like, but it's so confusing how they've done it that it's not a straightforward like transference. And so then my brain just explodes and I kind of like twitch a little. And then I'm like, You know?
That's okay. Well, then you should just only speak in scientific if that's how
Okay.
you feel. I just think it's fine. The hobby is complicated and has stupid logos and stupid names for stuff and 3 names for the same gene. This is like the nuance of dumb hobbies.
Of the industry, yeah,
Yeah,
for
it's
sure.
weird.
If your alleles are different, you are heterozygous. You could have a normal allele and a mutant allele, or two mutant alleles. The two different mutant alleles in the hobby vernacular is called an ALS, or acts like super.
So a butter Mojave is not homozygous, but it can
So it's
only pass mutant alleles. So it's technically heterozygous, but nobody calls them that
because they don't produce a normal, so they've given it their own
word.
name,
Right. And ALS is
but they're
not a
actually
word ever used
heterozygous. Okay.
anywhere in the whole hobby or anywhere outside of the hobby, I guess is what I'm saying. It's fine.
Okay.
We're just weirdos. It's fine. We have to accept what we can't change about ourselves. I think very few things are okay, but this one, meh.
Well, yeah, I mean, yeah, you have to just let it be okay, otherwise it's going to drive you nuts. So you can split your alleles into normal or abnormal or wild type and mutant. This can be tough because there are 5 alleles for a gene and 3 of them look quote unquote normal and are fully functional just to have silent mutations, and 2 of them are distinctly abnormal and have non-functional or less functional proteins produced. But all the non-distinguishable wild type alleles can mostly be ignored because they don't really do anything since they code for proteins the same. I have no idea what I just said.
So you
So
remember
why don't you take that away?
codons from high school?
Nope.
Okay, so like 3 nucleotides will code for 1 amino acid.
Okay.
Remember that?
Yep.
Okay, they're called codons. That's just like the codes. There's like a little chart, people can Google it. And so you can actually have mutations that do not change the amino acid coded for. I don't have the chart in front of me, but like you could like replace 1 nucleotide and get in the end the same amino acid placed at the same location. So it's a silent mutation because it doesn't matter. There's no effect. It's just changed the coding in the DNA, but there's no practical effect from that mutation. Does that make sense?
Okay.
Oh, fuck. All right, get the codon table up. Google codon.
Codon and nucleotides
Just
table.
Google codon. That's all you need. And it'll come up. Everybody at home, get your chart up. So go to the top left and go to U.
Okay. Is this
Whatever.
the UCAG? Is that what we're looking at?
Or UUU, and then UUC, then UUA, and then UUG. The top 2 code for phenylalanine, and the bottom codes for leucine. But if you have a mutation from UUU to UUC, you get the same amino acid put into the protein.
Okay.
So that's a point mutation that's silent. It doesn't matter. The mutation has occurred in the DNA. It'll be passed to the offspring, but the protein that's produced from that DNA is exactly the same.
Okay. So I understand what you're saying, and
Okay.
I'm asking how that applies to what we're talking about.
Because
How does that apply to ball pythons?
So there could be silent mutations in normal ball pythons that have no effect on phenotype, just an effect on genotype. That's why I was like, you could have 3 wild type-ish alleles and 2 mutant alleles. So technically you could have a normal that's heterozygous for 2 kinds of normal-ass alleles for that particular gene. Those just don't matter. They just don't matter. So we could treat all of the ones that produce a fully functional gene as normal, but they could still be heterozygous.
Individually categorize all the normals. They're just lumped into one group.
Right. But once you get into real hobbies with better, more advanced genetic testing, you'll find out that, let me go back to goats real quick, more advanced hobbies. So there's something called a Scrapie's resistance gene. Scrapie's is a disease in goats for everybody at home. So some goats they could have any of like 6 alleles. I'm sort of guessing because I don't remember the number. It's 6 or 7. 4 of them confer no resistance. 2 of them confer a little bit of resistance. And 1 of them is like the bee's knees. The 4 that confer no resistance are basically variants of wild type. And the other ones are mutant-ish alleles. So you could have an animal that's heterozygous for 2 normal-ish alleles that aren't that great at resisting Scrapie's disease. Or you could have one that's homozygous for like the really awesome resisting one. And so your goal will be to breed for more and more resistance into your herd. But it's just,
But it's not affecting their visual.
no, it has nothing to do with it. Most genes don't have it, fuck all to do with the outside of an animal. So we could be
Okay.
breeding for eating food good. Like we could figure out a gene that enhances growth.
Or a gene that shows that it can clear Nido.
God, wouldn't that be something? I don't know if that even exists, but if it did, that would be cool. I think it won't be clear. It'll be like resisting, like it is in scabies, where they could interact with the virus and they will just, some percentage of them will be more likely to clear it before it can ever take hold. Who knows? That's a speculation. Speculation. Objection.
Confirmed.
The conclusion there is, to the hobby, on a surface level, right now, the only alleles that matter are wild type and any mutant that we can tell is a mutant from breeding. Everything else doesn't matter yet.
Yeah. What is an allelic complex? This is actually a hobby vernacular term. Also, nobody really calls something an allelic complex outside of the reptile hobby, but it's a good reminder of a clumping of genes that all share the same locus or place in the genome.
I guess I should have written a clumping of alleles, because they're not separate genes. They're alleles of the same gene that are sharing the same position. That was a typo.
Do you want me to read? Do you want me to redo it?
Nope.
Okay.
I don't always say things correctly either, Jana.
I mean, the very first complex that we have listed here is the albino complex. And we have, through the genetic testing program, we have actually learned that there are two different albino variations in ball pythons that we didn't realize there was. We aren't defining them as separate. They're albino to albino. You still get an albino. There is visually no difference. But when they sequence the DNA, they can see that there's two different albino, but that they're in the same complex. So you still get a visual. So we're none the wiser, but genetically, there's actually two.
Everyone read Dr. Seidel's paper from the Ball Python Genetics Project. It is maybe a little heavy for some people, but hopefully it helps you understand, like, there are real genes being actually broken and we can find them.
It was a little heavy, but I did okay, so everybody else should do okay.
Yeah, I mean, you can skip over the parts where she's talking about whatever methodology or something, because that's not really germane. But it's fine. You can handle it. So Candy is also in the albino complex. This is a fact. And Ultramel is 100% not. And we have peer-reviewed paper about that. Please go read it. It's very good. Jana gave the seal of approval, which is the only approval that we need around here. So I'll have that in the show notes. More papers like this will come out, and we'll clear up like exactly where the mutation is happening or what the mutation is doing. I just look forward to those kinds of papers because I think they'll be very interesting, what other effects are happening in the snakes besides.
So you think that this will confirm that like lesser and butter are the same and the banana and coral glow are the same and desert ghost and enhancer are the same? Or do you think it'll show it'll show us that level of detail, right?
Yes, but I think it'll also show us that there are more alleles that do the same thing that we call the same thing too. But they functionally don't matter. So like there are two Yellowbellies in Yellowbelly currently. We already know that, just hasn't been published yet.
What? I did not know this. Please share.
Yeah, she announced a couple months ago on Instagram that they're finishing up the Yellowbelly Complex, which we'll get to here in a second. And there are two alleles for Yellowbelly that are being called Yellowbelly as we speak and look the same, but they are not exactly the same. So it's fine. It's just, we will discover both more and less complexity in the ball python hobby as we keep going.
That's really badass. I'm really looking forward to that. I should probably follow her on Instagram.
Right. The thing is, it's like, does it matter if you have Yellowbelly variant A and Yellowbelly variant B, but they're allelic,
right?
And
like
they look the same
1 and 2,
they're super
right.
the same? Doesn't matter. But it's just interesting. I like it. Like, let's learn more.
Yeah, I know. I think it's interesting too. That's what I'm looking forward to. Not that we're being defined in. I just think that it's neat to, like, I thought it was really cool that there's two albinos and we had no idea.
Yes, it is cool. And it's cool to know exactly how the snake is being broken to make an albino. It's like, oh, that's nice. That's all. So what do you think about this complex? Let's do like an opinion time. Do you like albino candy genes?
I prefer the albino candy genes to the lavender albino, even though that is not the popular opinion.
Do you think lavender albino is only popular because Justin is the leader of Lavender Albino?
So I think that we've had some discussions about this in other episodes, but I think that we've discussed that when an allelic recessive comes into the hobby that is quickly assimilated or able to be used because people already have the regular albino. So when candy was discovered, it was very easy for them to make candinos with their existing base adults. And so it automatically, like, you know that at the price, while it inflates initially, it is going to go back down because everyone's going to be able to have access to them and make them fairly quickly. I've heard Justin talk about this, but the reason that he likes and maintains lavender albino is he thinks that the fact that albino and candy are allelic takes away from them rather than adds to them. And since, learning more about the industry and how the hobby works and how, now looking at, is that what Clown and Krypton are going to do? Or DG Krypton. I mean, you just see other examples of it happening, and I'm interested to watch to see that it's most likely going to do the same thing. And so, from a business standpoint, I think that he predominantly uses that because it's a more stable price point.
Well, since Candy already received its drop.
Oh, it has. See, I haven't been
Yeah.
following it at all because I don't really work with.
I'm pretty sure Ozzy bought his for like $100,000, and then like 3 years later they were $4. So he actually like lost on the project once they found it was allelic.
Yeah, so that's what I'm saying is that, like, from a business standpoint, I understand why that's the pick, and anybody that's following him or doing his Patreon, or he has like the Justin School for ball pythons or all those things, I'm sure that that's what he's saying is that you have to look at it. He's a business major, so you have to look at it from a business standpoint. And marketing, he's a marketing major, so you have to look at from that perspective. I completely understand why people pick lavender, but for me, I really like candy.
Right. I just say
And I
like
think
now that the price is the same, people should be buying with their eyeballs. So they should be buying candy because I think candy, in my opinion,
candy
it
looks
looks
the best
better.
of all three,
Yep.
and it ages the best of all three. I think that adult lavender albinos look like ass. While I have no problem with adult albinos, the candy just looks way better. It just looks really cool, and I enjoy the way it looks. And so for me, candy is my pick from that. But I understand the rational argument. But in the projects that I'm also in, they don't work. So that's not a project that I'm in anymore. You can't catch them all. That's the reality. So, I mean, I really thought that a candy G stripe would be badass if you could get the right genes in it with it. Like a candy leopard yellow belly G stripe would be badass. And so, I hopefully in the future, when I have more rack space and I've done some other projects that really matter to me, maybe I'll come back to that. But for right now, like a Kiki candy isn't something I need to pursue, if that makes sense. It would just be something I was doing for myself, not something I was doing from a business or marketing standpoint.
And just to be clear, toffee is 100% exactly the same as candy. So most people know that, but if you don't, now you
Like
know.
interesting observation in my perusal, because like I said, this is my one of my favorite genes personally. I have
Toffee's
found
cheaper.
coffee is cheaper, and I have found that it is a darker line. Like I recognize that it's exactly the same thing, but I have found because of through line breeding, I have found that it's actually like the purple seems darker to me on toffees. I recognize that that's line specific, and that's just how it's turned out. I tend to gravitate more towards the ones, and then I look and it actually is because most people nowadays will put candy and then in their notes they'll put toffee. But the ones I gravitate more towards are coming from that toffee line. I've just noticed that. I thought it was really interesting. Just like with Enhancer and Desert Ghost, like I gravitate more towards Enhancer and like the creamier and instead of the cooler, but that doesn't make it a different gene.
All right. The Black Eyed Lucy complex, which is disco, fire, flame, lemon black, sulfur, vanilla. Do you have like a favorite of this category or a least favorite? These don't all make a white snake with black eyes, but they're all allelic and they're all color reducers in their heterozygous form and they trying to approach white snake in their homozygous form.
So my favorite are at the lower end of the spectrum. So their super form has a lot of pattern. Disco is probably my favorite. I just really like Disco Infernos, and I like that it looks like a pied. And so Disco probably gets my favorite, but it doesn't get a lot of attention in the hobby. but I just think that it does really cool things on its own, which is interesting that it doesn't get a lot of attention because other genes that do that natural like pied look seem to be very popular.
I think in general the discos and vanillas and like the weaker ones are better for combo potential because you can hit the super later on and it won't ruin literally everything. So there's
Yeah,
argument for that. But they're since they're weaker in their heterozygous form, A, it's sort of hard to ID in
very
combos.
hard to ID
So
the
that's
different.
part of the problem. And then if it's hard to ID, is it worth paying a lot more money for? I think that's where they're struggling a little bit. That's why fire sort of wins, even though it makes a white super, because it's really obvious. Even fire sometimes fucking sucks, but it's more obvious with fire than any other one.
Yeah, and see, and I tend to prefer this across the board, but I prefer the less like disco and vanilla rather than the fire that makes white. I prefer the ones that still leave pattern, even in different complexes. Like that's just how I generate towards genes is the ones that make more of a pure white snake. I'm like, okay. I want to put in the ones that are gonna mess up the pattern and not just completely take it away. But it is difficult when you can't distinguish the babies. And some people say they can, but we'll see once, the testing comes out if we really can. Most people will put the either or. And so I think a lot of people just naturally back away from any project that you have to put either or.
Right, she's saying either or because one of the parents was a allelic combination parent. So they were a disco inferner, a fire and a disco. And so the babies are either fire or discos. Some people think they can tell them apart or not, just to be clear. That's that ALS coming back in.
What's your favorite?
I don't know. I kind of hate that complex in general.
That's fine. You don't have to have a favorite.
I think it's fine. I like the vanilla super. I like that it has like a white head. That's interesting because it can keep a very dark body. So I think vanilla probably is my favorite, followed by like disco and fire. And the other ones that are basically not real can fuck off.
Go ahead and fuck right off.
Yeah.
There's really only three genes.
How do you feel about the Blue-Eyed Lucy complex? Bamboo, Daddy, Honey, Lesser, Mocha,
Oh,
Mojave,
the Bell
Mystic
Complex.
slash Phantom, Russo, and Special.
I mean, it's got so many good genes, and the White Snake is a big seller. I don't spend a lot of time making the correct term. Would it be homozygous or would it be heterozygous
Depends on if
combinations?
it's
It
an
could be.
ALS or not.
Oh, that's true. I don't spend a lot of time or energy wanting to produce two of these or a double of one of these. It's just kind of like a pain in my ass, this complex, because I love a lot of the genes in it, but you have to really be careful about which side of the gender that you have these things on. And sometimes, you have a badass pairing, but they both have a Bell gene, and it can really, I mean, you can't really sell at a show a Bell that could have, six genes in it for $800 or $900. You're only really going to be able to sell that snake, no matter how many genes it ends up having, for the same price as somebody who paired a Mojave and a Mojave. You know what I mean? Like it's that same base price. And so that always grinds my gears a little bit that you can have this wicked cool pairing and these potentially powerhouse snakes, but you have to treat them like they're none of that. And so this one irritates me quite a bit, but I really like most of the genes. I prefer the bell that has a lot more pattern. So like a Mystic Potion or the Mystic Phantom or that kind of thing rather than the pure white snake. Although I get the appeal, that's not my jam.
This might be my favorite complex. Second
I think
favorite?
that's what I would have guessed for you. It irritates me. It's like the naughty child, but who also is like
I
your
don't know.
pride
The
and joy.
fire is the same problem. I think this is much more reactive of a complex than any of the other ones.
Right, so you can tell what you're getting. Like you don't have to label them but like
No,
I
I mean
said,
like
it
reactive
sometimes.
in combos. Yeah, the super
Oh,
sucks ass. Like avoid at all costs. Go for the darker ones that have more pigment. So at least if you hit a super, it doesn't hurt your feelings as bad. But
so what?
they are so reactive to every other gene, every other complex. I have a shit ton of Bell stuff that I have no intention of making a bell with because of how reactive they are.
How many eggs did your Mystic Clown lay?
5. She hasn't
I,
eaten in like 7 months, by the way.
well, that's pretty dang good then. Good for her.
Remember, I was like,
That,
if she lays eggs, I don't know what she's gonna lay with.
yeah,
'Cause...
you thought they were gonna like be all slugs or all boobs or
Well, they were 3 out of 5 were boob-ish, but all had veins. So she was running out of
good.
steam.
Yeah,
So they'll be small babies.
who cares? Oh, I'm so excited to see that clutch. Yeah, so I love all the genes and I love what they do in combinations, but it just really grinds my gears that you have to be specifically cognizant of that so you don't end up with supers.
To me, it's fine. I just like that they're such a useful complex in the heterozygous form. Many uses. I think the hardest part about this complex is it tends to be pale as an adult. Like it's sucked away a level of melanin. So they make extremely pale clowns. Not good as adults.
Not good, but every clown needs 2 dark genes, so that just makes it better, right?
I don't know. Like I was looking at Justin's special fire Spotnose clowns as they got older. They don't have 2 dark genes, but they need something to punch them up color wise as they age because the special is letting them wash out, allowing clown already does this anyway by itself, but allowing clown to wash out. You need more dark genes or fuck desert ghost, who cares? Clown Complex.
Clown Complex. This one, it's
not
gonna
much
be
of a
interesting
complex
to see how this progresses, if it's gonna bottom out like Candy and Albino.
I mean, Candy went from $100,000 as like a new speculative morph to $4,000 2 years later. So Cryptic did not ever even do that. So it's already different.
Okay, that's fair.
It's already different. Cryptic is just a tiny bit more expensive than Clown. My argument was always, it is a less dramatic version of Clown, so it should just be slightly less than whatever the same Clown price is. I don't think it's going to like crash to $200 because nobody likes it. I just think when a normie looks at a Krypton or Cryptic on a table at a show or on Morph Market, they're going to be like, that's just a weird normal.
Yeah, they're
A
like, what am I
clown
looking
looks
at?
more like something. And a single gene clown is already difficult to sell to a pet buyer because it doesn't look enough like something. They want a pied or a banana.
Yeah,
So like
so many bananas.
the hierarchy of when will a male Cryptic or Krypton that's a normal be the same price as a male clown? That probably should have already happened. But what do I know? It'll happen eventually. It's fine. I think they're cool and I like it. And I like that there's an allelic clown. Great. And I think they will probably make a better tri-stripe clown. The tri-stripe Krypton, I think, will be much better than the tri-stripe clown because it's not agreeing with what tri-stripe already wants to do. It's disagreeing by being like vertically banded. Mm-hmm. So it's going to ask tri-stripe to give banding back, and where clown is just like the same thing again, but with some like teardrops. So I think in that way we can use pure Cryptic or Kryptons to make morphs that didn't happen to work that great with clown better.
That are still compatible with Clown.
Right. Which one do you like better, Clown or Cryptic?
Is that even a question? It's always Clown.
You were a Clown denier at one time.
I have had a really hard time letting Clown into my life, but I think that we have kissed and made up, and I have accepted. So I love Pied and I love G-Stripe, and Clown makes both of those projects desirable.
I mean,
so that's just a fact.
That's
fair.
Just
a business
that's
fact.
fair.
And so,
do you like the Cryptic G-Stripe? I like it. It's not as dramatic as a Kiki, but it's still likable. It's got those weird little swirly shits on the side.
I feel like I haven't seen it.
There's a couple on Morph Market right now. I'm like, that's a cool version of G-Stripe too, to me. It's got stripes that are not on the back anymore, just on the sides, and it's got like swirls and triangles going down because the Krypton or Cryptic is trying to like drag the pattern down again.
Why do I feel like I didn't know that these were here? And why haven't I just bought one?
I don't know, especially if it was a Krypton, because then it's a Kiki-ish.
Then it can make Kikis, or it can make...
Yeah. It's basically the cheapest Kiki of all time. I can't buy anything, but I think that's a cool project in itself, and if it's a Krypton, it's a Kiki maker too. I think they're both useful and good, clown and cryptic, and I love them. I just think it'll be fun to see what cryptic does in the genes that clown does not win in, because it'll
Right.
make...
It's like another alternative to the
Yes.
same type of thing.
Exactly. It's gonna be fun. All right, the 8-ball complex. It was big news when Inchy was announced to be allelic with this complex. And I think it means to me that there will be more genes that we'll find fall into a complex, because there's only so many places on a snake you can have a mutant allele that don't kill the snake, and then B, still provide some sort of visual effect. So we will find more and more get included that you wouldn't believe. But the 8-ball complex is black pastel, cinnamon, inchy, het red xanthic, Huffman, jolt, razor, and then there's a bunch of het red synonyms there that you can argue about all day long if you want.
Yep.
Which one of those is your favorite as a single gene?
It's probably black pastel. I mean, I enjoy this complex a lot in a single form. Black pastel, I think, is my favorite. What about you?
Yeah, I like black pastel probably the best also. Yes, the super is no good, but it's the most dramatic and busy as a heterozygote. I don't have any het red, and we've talked about this before, but I like that you can make a snake that's extremely dark that is not broken. So I would have it just to make black pastel combos with, basically. So Onyx would be the ALS name for that combo. What do you think about that?
I tend to treat Enchi like that with black pastel, like my goal to put Enchi in it. Het red xanthic, I think, has a lot of potential. I just don't. If it accidentally came into my collection, I would be excited, but I don't think I would seek it out specifically.
I mean, have you seen the Onyx Clown combos or the Gargoyle Clown combos?
I've seen like the Gargoyle, but I actually prefer Onyx to Gargoyle.
Yeah, I also have used black pastel Inchy ALSs while you're looking it up a lot on purpose, because it forces the issue.
You doing that.
To me, the combo, while very orange, and that's like the basis for Campfire with cinnamon, it's a cinnamon Inchy calico, it reduces the best properties of either gene and sort of mushes them together. It does make a animal that's bright underneath of the color, but it doesn't make an animal that's super dark or super reduced, because it's a combo of two things that are sort of fighting each other because they're on the opposite ends of the complex. So I like them for their versatility and their usefulness and the fact that they're allelic and you don't have McNormals. But I'm coming around to using HRA to go even blacker, if you will, Jana, without having a fucked up snake. I've been thinking about buying like a female het red xanthic clown to breed a black pastel GHI, whatever the fuck, het clown male too, or like giving the black pastel clown something to riff off of that gets the gene in the collection.
To react to.
Yeah.
Yeah, oh, absolutely.
Yeah,
I mean, I'm 100% more geared towards the Onyx rather than the Gargoyle.
I agree.
I don't know. I mean, like, cinnamon's fine, but it's like anytime you have anytime you have something with cinnamon in it, I look at that snake and I feel sad and I go, I wish you were black pastel.
Right.
Do you get those feelings too? Like, there's nothing wrong
every
with cinnamon.
day. You know, DPR cold
but you
blood.
look at it and you go, I wish you had black pastel every time.
Right.
And so it's like, it's beautiful. It's still doing a great job, but it always leaves me, oh, why aren't you this thing?
Cinnamon is less colorful underneath the color than a black pastel is for the same overall aesthetic and lack of usable super form. So it's like, why bother? You have something with less color, less contrast, less visual interest, cheaper price on Morph Market, harder to sell and move. Cinnamon. That's a cuter name for sure. No, yeah, DPR Cold Blood, he bought that like high-end cinnamon combo male, and I'm like, bless your cute heart. Fuck, dude. You know what I'm talking about?
Say it again.
DPR Cold Blood, the Quebecian.
Yeah, I know who he is. Yep.
Yeah, he bought like a cinnamon, Spotnose, red stripe, or Yellowbelly, no red stripe. Like, it wasn't a Pompeii, but it was like part of a Pompeii, but with cinnamon. And that was his cinnamon. Like high-end. And you're just like, bless your heart. Bless your heart. You're so cute. And you fucked yourself right in the ass.
God damn. It's like when you showed that like cinnamon Kiki, and I'm like, oh.
Yeah,
And don't get me wrong, my male G-stripe, my multi-gene male G-stripe carries cinnamon and it makes me sad every time. But like you see it and I bet you a black pastel Kiki does not look like hot trash.
no, I don't know. Now I'm
We'll
I'm
have to
actually
wait and
worried about
see.
the whole complex now because that one was very specifically
Hot
diff.
trash.
Well, no, just like diffuse in color. So that's like suspicious to me that that is the wrong direction.
Correct. Yee. It was hot trash. That's what it meant.
Yeah, I don't have any particular interest in the rarer of them, Huffman, Jolt, and Razor, because they look like they're such a weak form of the mutation that they almost look like nothing, and their homozygotes look like a het red xanthic, basically. So they're so
Yes.
weak that their homo looks like a het red.
That is something that I have struggled with when people are like gung ho about the genes, and I'm like, literally, homozygous still isn't as good as an HRA. So why not just get an HRA? And then you still have room to do more with it. You know what I
Right.
mean? Like, yeah, I don't get those genes at all, and they don't get my attention at all. So sorry, genes,
Right.
you suck.
If y'all
I
are
feel like they
into
should even
them,
be
go
like,
ahead.
I don't know, like a oh no, because you can't have like a homo, but like they are
I
just
mean, I'm
they're
into
so
that.
weak. Yeah, yeah. Unless you're into that, that's fine. We respect all kinds here. Moving on, the Mahogany Complex. Do you think that this should be its own complex? I know nothing about Cinder at all.
Cinder is an Outback Reptiles gene. I think it's debatable also if it's even just a synonym of mahogany still, but I don't think it is actually, but some people are still talking about that. I think the reason why these complexes are here, even though there are just a couple of them, A, is just a comment that they're complexes, and B, because other genes will be added in time. So at the time of the production of this article, and this is an article from the morph market community, Stranger was still possibly, and maybe still is in the complex, even if it's not the same. So that's why you'd want to have the complex as a, like the European gene copper. It could either be the exact same thing as mahogany or in the complex also.
Okay. You're just saying it's leaving room.
Yeah, these are snakes that are dark, but aren't allelic with the other ones that are dark and have an almost all black super. So that's just a different thing that we can do now. Is have even more weird snakes.
Okay, so I have a question that maybe you have the answer to. Why have we divided it into spider and spotnose complex? Because isn't spotnose and spider like allelic, but also deadly allelic?
No, they're not allelic.
Okay, so they're not allelic. Because I
No.
thought they were all in the same like wobble bad, don't breed together. But I didn't realize that they had their own complexes.
The Spotnose complexes have supers that, some of them have supers that wobble, but that doesn't mean they're allelic. They're just related in that they're, when they are, even though they're not allelic, if you have a spider spotnose, it's a train wreck because it's two things that are fucking up melanocyte distribution of nerves or whatever enough that it's a problem.
So they're fucking it up because of the nerve stuff, not because they're in the same complex, because they're not.
Right. They're just
Okay, so I had
both
it in my
fucking it
brain
up.
that like that's why they were fucking it up, but that's not true. That's a fake news. I just wanted to take a second to address that we are both a single mom in it today, and so you may hear my little one in the background giggling or talking, and you might hear Jessica's little one. I'm sure she will do her best to edit it out, but Jessica's husband is, out saving the country, and mine is, doing his own thing. So we both have kids today, and you may hear them.
Yeah,
And
I think we're doing okay-ish
yeah,
today. Fuck it. Fuck you
mine
guys.
just yeah, fuck you guys. Mine just popped in and was talking, and right when you were talking, so
Yeah.
I'm sure you won't be able to edit that out. But I just wanted to say that in case anybody's like, "What the fuck is happening at these circus freaks' houses?" But those are little people,
Yeah. I mean, who else is gonna watch them?
future podcasters. That's all I gotta say.
Spider Complex is Blackhead, Champagne, Hidden Chinwoma, and Spider. And last week I said that somebody said that Cypress was in the Spotnose Complex. And I double checked, and I think they're wrong again. And I have a video here from YouTube of a Spider Cypress pairing producing only spiders and cypresses. So to me, Probably Cypress and Bongo will end up Spider Complex. Then Spotnose Complex is Chocolate, Sable, Spotnose, and Wookiee. And we might have more that end up in the Spotnose Complex. But officially, Cypress is not in any complex. Spoke too soon last week. It was on a live, but then I couldn't find corroborating evidence, except for this YouTube video from 2 years ago.
We know that Bongo is going to be Spider, or we're theorizing that. We're not thinking it's going to go into Spotnose.
Theorizing right now, mostly because Bongo deletes Spider, basically, the same way Blackhead does.
Oh, that makes sense.
Of the Spider Complex, I think that all of them are trash except for Blackhead. What do you think?
I was just going to say, I mean, I'm looking at it and I'm like, I only see one here that you should even be using. So how did Blackhead get stuck in this trash complex that we should just throw all the rest of that away, in that dumpster with our boa that we overfed? How, I mean, I know it deletes Spider, but I mean, like, what?
Well, we don't know exactly what gene they're both having a mutation of. But whatever the gene is, some of them are reducing the effects of that gene and some of them are increasing the effects.
Oh, I got it. So it's like almost the opposite of Spider.
Right. So Blackhead is doing more of the gene and the other ones are doing different amounts of less. Spider maybe being the most less. So that's why it has the strongest wobble. But who knows exactly what's happening? It could be like a signaling molecule where like Blackhead's like, let's signal the fuck out of this bitch and we'll make it really patterned and dark. And the other one's like, let's signal way less. And so you get less pattern distribution. We don't know exactly. We'll know one day. I like Blackhead. It's beautiful. I want to marry it.
I love Blackhead. I wish I had more Blackhead.
Whoa. There's the cat. He's back.
All the Blackhead in my collection. Seriously. I think I only have one copy of it. One female. And it's still like debatable if she actually really has it in her. I'm skeptical.
Spotnose Complex. I like this complex a lot too. It probably is a contender for favorite also. Chocolate, Sable, Spotnose, and Wookiee
are like the gods of the genes.
For now.
Chocolate, I can live without, and Sable, I know nothing about. I know people who use it, but I don't care, and it's not enough on my radar of things that I'm like, holy crap, I love that. But Spotnose and Wookiee, take that all day long.
Well, Sable has a wobbly super. Just like a Spotnose or Cypress. Which is interesting because it's like the dark version. So usually the dark versions don't have a wobbly super. But in this case it does. So there's a lot of people who have been trying to bring Sable back and work it and do whatever. And I'm like, it looks a ton like Chocolate. It just has a different super. But if you can't use the super, then why not just use Chocolate? I don't know why people would want to bring it back. You know what I mean? Like, it's not doing anything particularly unique in the heterozygous form. But I also do not care. Yeah, Wookiee's a delight every day, and then Spotnose is critical for fixing boring and clown. It fixes boring. And I think people could argue, like, because Spotnose this is like, goes back to last week's question where, like, if the super has a problem, should you not use the heterozygote? And I've had people ask me this, and I'm like, no, who cares? Just don't make the super. Don't make the homozygote. Your heterozygote will be fine.
People don't make super champagnes and no one's bitching about it. So don't make super Spotnose.
Right. Don't feel bad.
Make a Spotnose Wookiee and then everybody's happy.
Right. You just have to be careful the same way with bells and making white snakes and fires making white snakes. Then not have Spotnose in all of your snakies so you're not accidentally making powerballs, which is the homozygous Spotnose gene. Working around that is totally fine to me. I'm happy to do it, just like I am happy to do it in bells. That's what makes it fun. The hobby is fun because it's hard. Super Stripe Complex. I don't know why the person on Morph Market labeled it like this. I don't know anybody who calls it Super Stripe and not.
No one ever anywhere calls it this. I saw it and I was like, no, it's the Yellowbelly Complex.
Right, because Super Stripe is a not popular combo anymore in that complex.
It's a specific combination. And so
well, the 8-ball complex is called the 8-ball complex because it's a combination too.
Oh, that's totally fair.
I think the Super Stripe complex was called that because that was the first ALS that was hit. So what's your favorite Yellowbelly Complex gene?
I like gravel.
Guess we should list them. Asphalt, Flare, Gravel, Spark, Spectre, and Yellowbelly.
Yeah, I like gravel and I like Yellowbelly. I mean, obviously, probably Yellowbelly is the best one, but I'm going to work things with gravel and see what happens.
Do you feel weird about using gravel instead of asphalt? Or do
There
you
is a
feel like
chance
some
I will
regret that
have
you
like
wished you'd?
buyer's remorse later about it. That's possible. Most people consider asphalt better than gravel, but when I was looking into it, that was what was available, and I was fine with that. Like I didn't care at the time. It's like albino and lavender albino, so it is the like cheaper one of the two. If I wanted to switch now, I'm in pretty deep. Gravel it is. I think they do pretty similar things, but I agree that they are not the same and they don't have the same reactions to genes, in my opinion.
I'm a little soft on this complex in general because I think they age pretty poorly. But I also agree that asphalt is probably nicer looking, but I don't really care. I'm not in the project, so I have no say in it. I do think there are ways that gravel becomes nicer looking. If you can get a gravel combo that is with pastel where the base is really white, but you can force the blacks to stay, that can be a cool look that maybe asphalt doesn't do as well. I don't know. It's fine. I have Yellowbelly for combos. Don't really need it for ALS combos. I think Yellowbelly is like critical to lots of combos. Because the
Every
fucking
combo.
Spotnose clown don't
Add
look like
yellow
shit
belly.
until it has Yellowbelly
Yes.
in it.
Yes.
Yeah. So, Yellowbelly critical. And if you want to do the gravel or asphalt versions of the Yellowbelly things, it's totally fine. It'll probably make it more expensive, but I don't think it will make it better looking. So,
So my wanting to work it in is that I tend to lean towards the busier supers. So like we were talking about Disco and Vanilla don't make a white snake, they make a patterned snake or Mystic Mojaves don't make a white snake. And so the genes that make a still a visually something on a combination I tend to gear towards those in general in all my projects. And so I think that having gravel in there instead of yellow belly or having some gravel and some yellow belly, it makes a combination that doesn't just turn the snake white like an ivory would. So for me, that's very appealing. And I want to see what like super gravel does in these combinations because no matter how good yellow belly is in its single form, if we can get a super gravel into that same combination instead of yellow belly, is it better than the single gene of yellow belly or is it worse? And that's what I want to see.
it is a good question. I think people's opinions will vary a lot. I think sometimes it's better and sometimes it's worse so far of what I've seen.
Well, yeah, and then we saw was it the highway or the freeway clown pied and it was hot trash and I was like, oh.
Right.
But the super gravel clown pied, I'd still like to see that. Has that been made? I don't think it has.
I think the supers of the ones that don't turn white will look better in combos that aren't pied because there's more space for them to do something. So like a DG clown super gravel, I think will look better than a clown super gravel pied. There's more space.
I agree.
There's more
Absolutely.
space. More pied is already kind of a wanky pattern changey thing anyway. So like it's fine. It's a cool extra thing to do besides just have straight yellow belly. But I don't think a Pompeii will look like a Pompeii if it was gravel or asphalt. Just put it like that. It'll look slightly worse.
Okay, but what would a Pompeii look like if it had two copies of gravel instead of one copy of yellow belly?
Probably a washed out piece of shit. What?
Okay, fair enough.
No, it probably will look still cool, but the tendency for that combo is to wash out as an adult and to be muted even as a baby, but like in a different way. They look cool as babies. They look like see-through or something. It's a cool look. Like they're like purple and weird. But I don't know what they're going to do when they get older. I'm not in charge of these snakes. I'm just soft on this complex. It's just this fun fact. Mostly because of the adult disposition. All right.
That's fair.
But yeah, it's obviously a popular thing to be into, so it's not like a bad financial decision. Fuck. Go for it. I like weird ball pythons anyway, because I'm a barbarian. There's also like the watch list, which is like where are Bongo and Cypress falling? Is Cypress in Spider? It's not like proven, but it's probably proven. Harmonic and Ultramel the same. And Dr. Seidel also found that there were 2 alleles for Ultramel also. And I remember, I don't know which interview was on, but she was lamenting that people weren't sending her caramel. sheds, because obviously not many people have caramel, that she thought it was maybe a mutation of the same gene, just
The
another
caramel and
allele.
ultramel were the same gene, but they were breaking at a different point. Did I say that right?
Yeah, and I feel like we've proven that ultramel and caramel aren't allelic, but she thought that maybe some of them were. So, like some of them. Does that make any, like some caramels, like they've been mixed together and maybe some of them are homozygous for both? Because I think ultramel came out of caramel lines, which is insane to say out loud. Then our patternless and G-stripes allelic, we don't know. And then stranger is not the same as mahogany, but is it allelic with mahogany? Maybe. I think the fact that it doesn't have a super lends to no. And then woma, not hidden gene woma, but regular woma. Where does that one fall? Do you have any thoughts about any of those?
I'm very, very interested to see where Bongo and Cypress end up because I am drawn to them. I'm really hoping that if they do end up in the spider complex, that they are the same as Blackhead in the regards that they take away rather than have neuro problems themselves.
Well, they do have neural problems themselves.
Well, in their supers, right? But not in
Yeah,
their singles.
right.
But Blackhead doesn't have a problem in its super.
It does.
It does? Okay. That
Small
sucks.
percent of the time. But then some people have said, like, they have not yet had one be born that had a problem. So then it's like, well, then how common is it? I don't know. Doesn't matter. But they do, supposedly, some of the time. And obviously I'm like a anti-wobbler in general, but I am willing to have like a nuanced approach to this situation. I like blackhead. It's mostly fine. If I produced a super blackhead, 1 in 100 had a slight head tremor, is that fine? To me, it's fine. It doesn't
That's
feel
fine
like
to
a
me, yeah.
double standard. I can find someone who wants this specific animal who's barely has a problem. I don't know. It seems totally fine. Double standard, full of shit, totally fake. That's me, Jessica Hare. And then there's a lot of, I'm not going to read all these because it's boring, but there's a lot of genes that are the same thing, just different names, either from different lineages or people are.
Wanting to claim rights to creating something that they haven't
Right,
created.
right.
There's
Even if it was
this,
on accident or on purpose,
a
who
sense
knows?
of ownership of that particular line. Like I have Bright in my collection, and I think that it's nicer than other examples of fire in my collection, but I definitely tell people it's a line of fire because it is. It's just a line bred line of fire, and they call it Bright, and that's how I treat it in my brain. You're gonna disagree with me?
I know people are like, I should use the name that was the lineage of the animal to respect the lineage from the people who originated the gene, even if it's the same as other ones. It might be
Oh,
time to stop doing that. There are so many synonymous names, so
I
many.
have seen the trend towards stopping doing that when you list it for sale, and then the trend that I am seeing as the acceptable thing to do is to list the pairing and list what line it's coming from. So like the Bright line of fire, or Justin Kabolka lists all of his enhancer stuff as DG, and he lists in the comments this was from an enhancer, male or female, which is a line of desert ghost. And I think that for now that is the appropriate like stepping stool as we transition from this. I saw it first, I get to name it, it's mine, and you can't tell me it's the same as yours mentality.
I'm confused about like I know Morph Market themselves should probably still have all the listings, but I almost think they should add in a feature where you can click a button and it's like run synonyms. So if someone still chose to use the correct lineage name, for the ones we know are
Right. So
synonymous.
if you're looking for something that, like maybe you're looking for a banana pied and you search banana pied, it should also put up coral glow pieds.
Yes. Yes. So if people wanted to be specific in their ads, they could, but they wouldn't be knocked for just not having to put it in an ad category that is more popular, because that totally happens. There's like price, like toffee and candy. People thought harder about what they were doing. They would check both categories, but people don't. I don't know. This one's complicated.
Yeah, there's nuances, just like any other part of the reptile hobby, that with genes that we suspect are the same or are just the same gene that's been line bred differently, like coral glow and banana, and it's just like discovered by different people, and And so there are like very tiny nuances that you can maybe tell, or not always. And I don't know, I think I would not cry, but I'm sure a lot of people would if they took away butter, or if they took away coral glow, or, if they decided that we were going to call all desert ghosts and enhancers just desert ghosts. Like that, I would not be offended by that, but I think that the community might be a bunch of sticks in the mud. We'll have to see how it progresses.
Yeah, it's fine. This is one, like, you don't envy Justin, right? So he's making choices that will inevitably piss somebody off in terms of naming or pricing. Because if confusion is still more expensive than acid, but we are fairly certain they're literally exactly the same, it's just polygenic differences, he should still be keeping the name confusion, but it's the same as acid. So how do you even price something? I don't know. Thank God we're not Justin. Justin problems.
Justin problems. And I think he has the brain to handle them. So we'll just let him keep doing that.
Mm-hmm. I have a couple notable not allelic combos that are very reactive, which are GHI, Mojave, and Cypress Red Stripe. And I lament each day not knowing where GHI, ostensibly my favorite gene, falls. It has no complex, and it's extremely reactive. I actually think it'll end up being allelic with a granite type look, because it's sort of a over exaggerated granite to begin with, but no one knows if it's actually allelic with anything at all. I find that very interesting.
It'll be interesting to figure out what it's going to be classed as and why it's so reactive in that combination, because usually that is an allelic response, but they aren't allelic. And so it's like, yeah, it'll be fascinating to find out what actually is going on.
So the Bell complex is overreactive to granite types. So that's part of why I think GHI will end up in a granite type category. Because it's just like the granitiest fucker.
Is there
of
no
all time.
like granity complex, because so many of them
Are
aren't
the same?
There's so many of them are the same, but so many of them aren't like reproducible.
Right. If it's polygenic or not monogenic, it cannot be in a complex because it won't be sharing the same locus, right? It's not a mutation of the same gene, so it can't be allelic. It's just 4 genes got mutated somewhere, and it gives it a little bit of a granity look. Many of the granite genes are monogenic, so they are mutations of a single gene. But if you bred a Grim to a Marvel or something, just pick another random granite type, could you even tell the babies apart?
Oh, likely not. Yeah, it'll be like the Yellowbelly thing.
Yeah, to know which one is. Some of their supers look so similar it doesn't even.
So do you think that that's something that will come forward as we have more testing available and more data on that? Or do you think that, because I mean, it's like we have Yellowbelly, we have the, vanilla and fire, and you can't tell those apart. And so why is granite being left out is my question. Because I love granite. I'm granite all day long over here. But I'm confused as to why it gets no love. There's no complex. It's like, is it because we haven't found anything that's allelic together, or like,
I'm
confused.
3 problems here, maybe more. 1, some of them are not monogenic. Some of them are polygenic. 2, if they are different, the various lines of them that are monogenic, you can't tell them apart to be like, yo, yeah, this one is a super, an ALS of Grim and whatever. And now I can tell apart the babies because this one's like a little speckly different. This one, there's. So what are you going to send to Dr. Seidel?
You mean even if they breed that either or, the combinations look so similar that you still can't tell what gene you have.
Right.
Is that what you're saying?
Yeah, what if you made it ALS? You don't even know. It looks the same.
That's fair.
Right. So if I make a nanny GHI thing and I go and breed it, since GHI is stronger, we should be able to tell if they're all nannies and all GHIs. But since most of them almost look the same, except they have variations in their super forms, sometimes, it'll take a long time. It's taking the hobby fucking 20 years just to decide it's even a thing, monogenic and not just polygenic. So now it's going to take people sorting it out through breeding trials and then sending Dr. Seidel some sheds to decide if they're even related. Yeah, I'm pretty sure there's like 5 granite genes that are literally the same thing also. Just it's a matter of proving it.
Yeah, I mean, I absolutely agree with you on that. I like them. So I would like to see more done with them. I would like to have some clarification on them. It's just like this gray blob hole of let's not look at it too closely, and everybody's focusing on other things, which is fine, but I don't know. I like it. I like the way it reacts. I enjoy it, but it's a hard thing to pin down.
Right, especially since some other genes like fire cause graniting by themselves. So go make a fire combo with granite. Is it the fire doing it or the granite? So you don't even know if you've hit the combo or not.
Yeah. No, that's fair.
All right, last question. What's your favorite line of Xanthic? Pretty much all of them are not compatible. It's possible MJ and TSK are the same. Do you have any thoughts on the Xanthic genes?
In general, I'm not a fan of Xanthic, but I really have it hot for black Xanthic.
Why is that? I was
Why is
actually
that?
looking at different ones, and I started to be like, I actually don't think black Xanthic is that much different than certain lines of the other ones. I know.
Maybe it's just the quality of the stock or because Canova told us to be hot for black Xanthic. Maybe I'm just a sheep. In general, I'm not a fan and don't work with Xanthic. But the black Xanthic combinations that he showed, I greatly enjoyed.
I know that's
And went,
that's what I'm saying.
I
like
should reconsider that.
VPI Ghost, True Ghost, or TSK True Ghost can look exactly like his black Xanthic Ghost combos too. I don't know. Some Xanthics look like dog shit, to be honest. And I just think there's a possibility black Xanthic, which we know for sure is not allelic with VPI, because VPI found black Xanthic and tested it. But black Xanthic might actually end up being one of the other 5, just not VPI.
When are the testing project going to look at all this hot mess of Xanthic? Because he's also had it pop out in his pied lines, and my male come from his pied lines. And so I've seen some Xanthics in real life. And
how disappointed were you?
On a scale of 1 to 10, 1 not being disappointed, like 1 being like, this is the fucking coolest snake I've ever seen, and 10 being, are you sure that this is a Xanthic? It was a 10, a hard 10. And then it was an adult female. And I could absolutely see that it was a Xanthic, but it was so washed out and so shitty looking that I'm like, what is the point of this? Like, this looks like hot trash.
What
and so
line was that one for the people at home?
The people at home, it was the really obscure one.
Jolif?
Yes, thank you. And it was hot trash. And I was like, this is hot garbage and I'm going to sell it today. I don't get it, And then you hold a desert ghost or a pastel desert ghost. I'm sure if I was holding a pastel Xanthic, maybe it would have that same effect. But you hold a desert ghost and you go, holy shit, this is amazing. And so that was not the feeling I got when I held an Xanthic. I mean, like, I like lightning pieds. That's cool. But for me, just regular Xanthic does not push my buttons. I'm sorry. I'd rather see a desert ghost.
I'm not as hard on Xanthic as you are, apparently. But I like gray snakes. I think gray snakes are very attractive. And I like when Xanthics focus on contrast, because contrast is king, and nothing is more contrast than white and black. So it really depends on like the quality of the animal and then the exact mix of genes selected. So Xanthic isn't 100% no yellow. Almost all of them have a small percentage of yellow still expressed, and that sort of amount can be titrated down through selective breeding.
Yeah, and I'm saying that there are combinations with Xanthic in it that are much better than just a single gene, but I don't know. That's not where I see myself working at all. Like, if I never had any Xanthic, I would not ever be sad about it. Like, it holds very little appeal to me.
What about the Desert Ghost Xanthic clown? Does that hold little appeal to you, Jana?
I mean, it was gorgeous, but I wasn't like, oh, I need to go and get some Xanthic in my collection and start doing that. Like, I've got 5 other recessives that I'm trying to put in clown, I mean, so it's like I just have other ones that I prefer. Like, I'd rather do hypo all day long than work in Xanthic.
All right.
Do you
Sorry.
currently work with any allelic combinations? Not their single genes, but any like I have a highway project. Do you have any that you currently?
Where I want them just for their allelic combination and not for their use as breeding animals? Is that what you're asking me?
I'm asking you if there's any in your any. Are you involved in any projects that are allelic combinations? Like I know you would eventually like to have Wookiee Spotnose, right?
Right, but I wouldn't have Wookiee Spotnose to have Wookiee Spotnose. Is that what you're getting at? I do not do any action because I want to make an incomplete dominant combo of any kind. Ever.
Ever.
Yeah, I do things because I want recessive combos that are interesting. If that recessive combo happens to have an incomplete dominant ALS in it, good. Good. Because then that means that recessive is like a double recessive. But
Right.
I do not have any, nor will I ever buy any stuff to make highway combos or freeway combos or stuff to make. Like, I don't go out, like, I
You don't
make.
work with things that don't have recessives, period.
Yes. So I would buy, a gravel clown and get another gravel clown just to see if we could put dark stuff in super gravel clowns and make like a really interesting super gravel. Yeah, that's a good idea. Do that. But I don't care enough about the sort of long-term usage to just treat that project as a standalone project. I guess is that what you're asking? Like I have black pastel inchies, het desert ghosts.
No, I was asking like standalone project. Like
Yeah.
people are really hot into producing bells, and people are really hot into producing, freeways or highways. Like I have a highway project that I'm trying to work into my recessive projects, but it didn't come recessive, if that makes sense.
Yeah, I never wanted to do that, and I wouldn't do that now. I don't know if I would tell someone to do that. I was like, if you like highways, I would buy them in the recessive you want them in eventually. Because it saves you 3 generations or some shit.
Not wrong.
It doesn't cost that much more to go buy a gravel het clown and a yellowbelly het clown and try to shoot for the moon and hit whatever instead of buying, a highway female for $600 and then breeding it to your clown and then waiting and then, that's what I'm getting at, I guess. We don't need to do just the easy stuff. That's like being like, I want to hit GHI Mojaves. I do want to hit GHI Mojaves, but I also want them to be clown.
Right. So do you think that the act like supers, do you like to see those in your projects, or do you think that sometimes it shoots you in the foot because they can't produce themselves? So you're going to get one or the other. Does that ever bother you or cause you frustration?
I'd rather produce all of a gene, of some kind of mutant gene, than try to roll the odds to get the same animal again. It's harder to get the same animal again. It seems much better. Like, I would, you know what I mean? Like, good. I'm glad Wookiee and Spotnose are allelic. Good. This is excellent news.
Do you think that that helps
Yes.
in breeding?
Yes. Making more of the same thing, but like in the other gender or something, if you're trying to hit something, that's pretty good. But having the tools to force the issue and being like, everybody's Spotnose or everybody's Wookiee. So that was Allelic Complexes. It's not as complicated as anybody thinks. The hard part is just sort of memorizing them, all the stupid names to begin with. The genetics of it aren't that complicated. They're just flavors of mutations of the same gene. And some of them are better or worse for whatever breeding reasons, personal taste, whatever. But it'll be fun to keep going on this journey, especially with genetics, because we're going to find out all kinds of crazy shit. And that's the best part for me. Read that paper by Dr. Seidel, by the way. I'll say it again, because it's good for you and good for your brain. News, Jana.
News.
Dave Kaufman came back from Africa. Does he have malaria? No.
He said he doesn't, but his friend got it.
Hopefully his friend is doing okay. Yeah, there's not much to talk about here because he didn't release anything. He was just talking about his journey, and I was like, God, good on him. I'm glad he did it.
How much weight he lost.
How many times has he ran and shit in the woods somewhere because it was an emergency, and he had to go.
Yeah, I was going to say, that Justin interview we've heard 37 times, and he said he spent time in Africa studying ball pythons. He never talked about
He was on a
any
mission
of this
trip. He
stuff.
wasn't studying ball pythons. He just saw a
Oh,
ball python nearby. He didn't
oh,
even have ball pythons at the time. He just saw them where they were.
in their native habitat. See,
Right,
that's
but
not how I understood it.
he was on a mission trip doing mission stuff.
That makes total sense why he doesn't have horror stories like Dave Kaufman. I am so excited to watch what he comes out with. And I'm not like a big Kaufman fan. I'm not like I don't dislike him. I'm a pretty neutral. It's not like I follow him on YouTube or anything, but I went ahead and gave him a follow, and I'm excited to see his movie, and I'm excited to see what he saw and witnessed, and I'm grateful that he went and did it, and almost died probably 100 million times, and I'm excited to see the content. I hope he doesn't. He kind of said that some of the videos he didn't get what he wanted, and so he's not 100% sure if he's going to put them out. And I hope he chooses to put them out with what he got. Maybe he wants to fill in or narrate some places to fill gaps that he feels like there is there, but I just feel like there isn't that kind of content anywhere. And so if he didn't get everything that he wanted, and it's not this perfect like script in his mind that it didn't go that way, like I hope he still chooses to put that out, because
I know he sounded like he was
very unique
apologizing ahead of time.
I know I wanted to message him, but he doesn't know who the hell I am. You know what I mean? I almost wanted to message him like, literally, this is 100% unique content, and who cares if it's not up to your standard? It exists nowhere else. And so if you choose not to put it out there, it's not like he's going back to Africa anytime soon to check off his little list of things that he wanted for that video. And I understand having really high standards and that stuff, but put it out, man.
Right. He's doing great.
He's doing great. And and I'm not trying to like rail on him. I just think it's okay to lower your bar a little bit because it was a unique situation, and whatever content you put out is going to be unique and fresh and desirable to those of us who won't probably ever be in Africa, doing what he just did, herping in Africa. So, it's like, I have very little desire to do that, but I do want to see what he experienced, if that makes sense.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
But how he's like, don't freak out because you have to bribe Border Patrol. I'd probably be the girl in the back seat crying, and they'd be like, I'm going to take her for millions.
Yeah. First world.
Poor country girl.
First world glasses.
Yeah. First world problems.
Lenses.
Like, I just have no experience with that. And anyway, it did not sound like a fun trip to me. And I'm so grateful that he did it, and I hope he doesn't keep that content because he's trying to hold himself to this like golden standard when it's such a unique thing. And so I don't know, hearing him talk about it, maybe he just needs like a week of solid food and rest, because it sounds like he's feeling pretty bad about himself.
Yeah, get better soon, buddy. Just take a break.
Yeah,
no more videos. You're fine.
And we're all excited to see what you put out. So I think he'll feel better after he's had some rest and perspective about that. It's just cool.
Did you watch the Showcase Serpents interview with MJ? It was like a week ago now.
Yeah, when you sent it to me, I watched it right away.
I only have 2 points. He said 40% of his females between 24 and 28 months have laid eggs by then. And he worms his snakes every 2 years.
Yeah, I thought that was interesting. Yeah. I don't know anybody that's worming their snake that's not doing imports.
I worm my snakes.
Really?
Yeah.
When do you do it every year?
No. I just do them when I feel like they're getting a little weird. Like their poops are
individually?
a little thin. Yeah.
Interesting.
Because I feed live. Just by default, your live rodents will somehow, flies, maybe in the food. There just might be like pinworms in their food that they cannot never get. They're not, in a perfectly sanitary environment, but they have no...
Right. They're not...
I don't cook their food in advance.
Correct. Yes.
Also, frozen rodents probably... It's debatable, but how long a frozen rodent's worms could potentially live for eggs. Potential. Maybe.
Right. Huh. That's a good food for thought. I will definitely look into...
I'm not telling you have to worm your snakes. Just, sometimes the snakes will have to say, harder...
look into it and decide for yourself.
Yeah.
Because I did hear him say that, and I was like, I've never heard anyone say that that doesn't work with wild caught. But now that you're saying, yeah, I do that, then that's something that I will do my own research on and decide.
This goes back to like the farm thing here. You know, if you have a farm, you have like worming protocols for animals
Right.
because they're outside eating grass and there's worms all over that grass. And so they're getting a certain worm load. And it's pretty natural to have a certain amount of worms in any ruminant or dog. And it's just
Well, I
like,
have cats and I worm them every year prophylactically. Or if they start to look skinny,
so it's
like
the
it just,
same thing in the snakes. You can't necessarily guarantee that the rodents that are fed to them are always free from worms. I also I worm my rat
I was just gonna
colony
say, do you
more
worm
often
your,
than I worm my snakes. Let me put it that way.
okay.
So almost once a year now, we'll do prophylactic worming. It's kind of a pain in the dick though, because for the rats I'll put ivermectin in their water, but the snakes can't eat the ivermectin, so you have to wait
I was
till
gonna
the
say, you can't feed your
ivermectin.
rats for a while
Yes,
after you
so
do that.
but the snakes can have fenbendazole, or snakes can also have pyrantel pamoate. So there are things you could give the rats that the snakes can eat that are totally fine, that you can also then worm the snakes with. It's just sort of how you want to manage the system here. Like if you're breeding rats and you're never worming them ever, you could be developing a worm load in your rat colony that's maybe too much. It's very weird to tell someone to be like, you should have zero worms in your animals all the way across the board, because that is not necessarily natural either. So if you have a little bit of a worm load in your snakes and they're fine, it's probably a good immune regulator to have them have an interaction with a worm, and then maybe you cleared it up. This is like almost a different podcast entirely, but
It's fine. One of the reasons we talk about news is it brings shit out.
worming your rats, buying from colonies that at least intermittently worm their rats, and then worming your snakes, even if they're captive bred, potentially. And you can obviously, you don't have to prophylactically worm snakes without doing a fecal float to determine if there's any worms there. That makes sense to me. Like, why bother? But sometimes I'll just be like, your stool is a little runny. I feed live to you. You might have picked up something. And I'll slap them.
Yeah. So what I really enjoyed about this podcast episode was his talk about biosecurity, his talk about not bringing in adults. I felt like people aren't usually as transparent as he's being, that they are aware
That adults are dangerous as investments?
that nidovirus exists. I mean, he didn't say the hot button word. Yeah, that it's a dangerous investment to your whole business, not just that one animal. And so I felt like he has had some really key points about smart investments regarding to biosecurity and do's and don'ts that a lot of other people ignore. Myself, I fall into that category and I'm trying to move away from that. I think that that's a good exposure for the community, even if it doesn't sound like good exposure. Like it didn't have nidovirus there or disease testing. He wasn't being flagrant with his language, but he was using the correct language that I know that he is doing things that would make me feel good about approaching him to buy from him. And that is always a win in my book.
Yeah, I think I would
No?
buy from his collection also, but I don't think he's necessarily on the same side that we are. Let's put it that way. Curious.
Biosecurity, then that's better than Joe Blow, who I know nothing about, who's probably bringing in, you know, who knows what. So it just makes it, even if he's not all the way where we should be, because I mean, I don't feel like I'm all the way where I should be. All of my animals have been tested, but I'm still breaking out of hobby habits that when you come in and you're researching are like ingrained into you. This culture of, the ghost story and the Karens, and that's not going to happen to you. People are just trying to scare you away and ruin the hobby and all that stuff. Like there's like deeply ingrained things that I'm trying to move away from, to do things correctly. And so to hear other people talking in a more appropriate manner regarding biosecurity and collection acquisition, I felt like that was a positive thing. And it may not be like all the way to where we want to be, but I'm going to take positives where I can get them.
Yeah, I'm not saying he's a bad person or something. We'll get into this one day, but there are parts of the hobby that are pro-testing, testing agnostic, and then anti-testing, but still pro-biosecurity. Like, testing is too hard for your tiny brain. You don't understand what you're doing, so we're just going to use biosecurity only as the only sort of measure. I'm not saying this is even him, but this is what it sort of sounded like to me. So I think, this is a personal belief, does not reflect our sponsors, which is my cat's butthole, who wants me to pet him right now.
So what you're saying is that is approaching a dangerous, like, this is enough, fuck off.
No, I don't know. I don't know what it's approaching. I just know there are people in the hobby who are actively working against people who are interested in testing because they don't think testing is either real or adequate or appropriate for the situation that we're in. And he could still be, or anyone like him who's only buying babies and being really strict about quarantine once they're there, could still be the totally correct decision for a ball python nidovirus situation. Because 99% of the time, he is not going to get nidovirus in such a young animal yet.
But I
just want to insist here that, like, shit is not the same as ball python nidovirus, and the ball python industry is weird, and ball pythons, even babies, can be cross-contaminated if you're not buying from people
If you are buying from people who don't have biosecurity as well, you can, spend $1,500 on a female and have her show up less than a year old, full of nido. Enough nido to blow up the test. So, that's personal experience on my part. Yes, all of those practices are a good start, but without that test, you can still, obviously you can still get nido even if you're testing. That's what biosecurity is also a good thing for. And having good practices where you only bring in young snakes, you are more likely to not encounter a positive. But without that test, you can't just shut down ones that are actively positive. Like, you don't just get, like, I had that test, I sent it back. That's not in my collection now. And so if I had just assumed because she was young that I didn't need to test her when she was actively positive, that gets into your whole project and can contaminate no matter how safe you've been. Once you're breeding them and putting them in bins, that can contaminate the whole project. And so I hear you, but I'm just saying, when I hear words like biosecurity and only buy young and those kinds of things, I get excited and happy, and I think there needs to be more. We need to do more. We need to say more, and we are. But hearing some of the right words makes me hopeful when often I feel like a burning dumpster of
right. I want to re-insist that, like, he seems like a coherent adult who is taking care of his collection very well.
This isn't directed at him,
and he may even be testing. I literally have no idea. I have no idea. Honestly,
we're talking existentially and not specifically about this one person.
But if someone is that into it, they will have at least tacitly known that nido existed, and so him choosing to exclude that from the discussion implies to me that he probably is either a cash tester or not really a tester at all. He just is using biosecurity safety measures,
right, and didn't pursue it any further than changing his biosecurity.
Right.
Yeah, I don't know. Like I said, existentially, irrespective of him, it's nice to hear the word biosecurity in regular ball python conversations. Like, one of the main reasons that we're doing this podcast is so that, people who are listening for other reasons or other content get used to people saying, so I tested this snake as in everyday conversation. And so to hear words that we want to hear being used in everyday conversation, to me, feels like a win for the hobby in general, irrespective of him, irrespective of does he have 5 more steps to do, maybe. But irrespective of all of that, it's nice to hear the correct words in everyday conversations, because I don't feel like they come out very often.
Mm-hmm. Did 40% of your 24 to 28-month-old females lay eggs this year?
None of mine.
9%. Kitty.
Nunzos.
Yeah, me neither. So I think there's something to be thought about we've belabored the shit out of this topic a lot, but this is
Every episode.
a hard number from someone with a percent. So it's just interesting. We'll move on because I don't know why is the answer. There's nothing really there. We could ruminate all day. All right. So MJ and Chris's Nobody's Safe sessions. Did you think that no one was safe while listening to it? Or did you think they maybe put on the little baby gloves and weren't actually being that aggressive?
I was deeply disappointed. And this might get me some fire, but I'm just gonna be fucking honest. Like,
you thought it was gonna be a little heavier when you came in.
I came ready for the gloves to come off and for people to be swinging and for some shit to happen.
I know, and they were like pretty toned down.
Light and toned down. It's almost like they have the opposite. So separate, they're both like no coddling, whatever, but together it was almost like they had like a sedating effect to each other. I don't know, because I listened to their other one
their other one was not the same.
It was so great, and I really enjoyed it, so I was so excited. And then I listened to it, and they were sleepy, kind, and they were talking about. So I feel like that was more like a, this is going to happen, but that the content we were promised maybe is next episode. And maybe this was just like the intros and
it was the fluffing episode.
Episode.
Yes, they were getting ready.
Was fluffed. I didn't feel like there was
like
any
you weren't safe
meat.
Yet. I know. There's no meat.
And I didn't feel like they called anybody out. I didn't feel like there was there was no meat. It just literally felt like the intro fluff piece. And I was still at the end when it ended going, where's the controversy? Where's the who wasn't safe today?
I felt very safe the whole time. What about you?
Yeah. So looking forward to the next episode. We'll absolutely tune in. I expect there will be unsafe episodes in the future. Like I said, I still love this mashup, but I was very safe. I was in very safe hands.
Warm and fuzzy.
And I didn't want to be safe.
Yeah, I know.
I was getting warm fuzzies, and I've never gotten warm fuzzies from these two individuals. And I dig feeling unsafe while I watched them. So I don't know. It didn't trip my trigger.
Right. I thought it was interesting that Sean Bradley sold his aquarium shop and decided to get out of this is like bullshit update. Out of the aquarium business.
I really gotta listen to him because everybody keeps talking about him, and I'm just like, meh. I can't even get half a Woody up to care about this guy.
Well, he's not in the hobby anymore, or wasn't, so like it didn't matter. But it's just he had one of the biggest podcasts for a while. And
I know you keep telling me to go listen.
And he was also like a smart ass. So he would call people out and be like a contrarian.
I know you reference him quite a lot when you're talking, like especially when we were planning our podcast. You referenced him and bullshit quite a bit, and I just need to go get some reference points.
Yeah. I don't. If I could think of like the best.
It just makes me feel a little green when everybody's talking about him, and I'm like, I don't care about who this.
Yeah, it's okay. Well, once he comes back and he starts bullshit up again, we'll have to care about him because he's apparently trying to come back into the hobby. So we'll see what happens. Tutti Frutti, a local breeder, was on Samson Riviera's channel.
Oh yeah, so I think it's great that someone local got some online attention. I went and watched it in support of them. They vend all the same shows as I do. Real nice people, and it was fun to see parts of their collection. When you're vending, you don't really get as much time as you'd think to BS with other breeders, or maybe I don't do it as much as I should. I don't know. I don't know the answer to that, but I was glad they got exposure, and if you haven't watched it, check it out.
Do you want to be on that show?
No, thank you.
No, he's funny.
He's funny. I have listened to quite a few of his episodes, and I'm not ashamed of my collection or anything, but I also don't have the right equipment to make a video showing of my collection do justice to the animals, and I don't have any idea what the sound would quality would be on that and the lighting, and I don't know. I just think that if you can't do it right, I choose to not necessarily do it. And so I feel like I'm so lacking. Like right now in the podcast, everybody knows that Jana's a pillow princess and Jessica does all the work.
So beautiful.
And so it's a symbiotic laziness on Jana's part that works for everyone. So I just am so technologically challenged that I don't, in my personal opinion, I would want to do it well. And I don't have the knowledge and I don't have the equipment to make that an effective use of my time or anyone's time. And so, I mean, maybe it doesn't matter. Maybe people see that and whatever level you have, they're going to accept you at that. But for me, just doing it isn't the same as doing it right. What do you think? Would you be on his show if he asked you?
Not right now because I'm busy. I don't have any brain cells.
If you weren't moving across the effing country.
Yeah, I probably would. I think in general, even sort of, middling promotion is better than no promotion.
It's fair. I mean, that's probably really arrogant of me to be like, no.
Yeah, I mean,
okay,
like
bitch,
a $20 webcam, even if it's not a 4K camera, slap that on a computer.
Right, I don't have a webcam and I don't even have a camera on my desktop.
You could.
And then what? Yeah, I mean, I'd have to, like, what I'm saying is that, so it's not like, oh, he sucks and I don't want to be on him. It's that I would have to do a lot of shit on my end and I couldn't show up and be a pillow princess. It would be a lot of effort for what, like you said, you're moving. So if he asked you to do it today, your initial reaction is, oh, that would be a lot of effort. That's my reaction. I'm not saying that he sucks or that anybody he's had on sucks or anything like that. It would be great. Attention is great. What I'm saying is that I would hold myself to, I would need to have a basic understanding. And right now I don't have the brain bandwidth, not, oh, I'm too good for his show.
I wasn't implying that. I just think it's probably easier than you think. A lot of the people who do those lives on YouTube are usually doing them on their phone. Most phones are plenty adequate, sometimes better than most webcams, frankly. They just need internet service.
Well, yeah, but for my internet, sometimes it's a giant robot.
Mm-hmm.
To our great love, sometimes my internet's real great.
Mm-hmm. All right, we had a Kraken 3.0 clutch.
Hot damn.
And I mean, the Paradox one was cool. I still prefer the babies from the first mom to the second mom, and this is her second clutch.
I agree. Yes. Why did he switch?
He didn't switch. He just paired the same male to two different GHI Mojave females. I'm guessing the first mom didn't go this year, but the second mom went back to back.
Well, it was like missing a gene that made it do the octopus suction cups. I can't remember what exact gene it was, but the original, the Kraken 1.0, I still think looked better than 2 and 3.0, except for that the Paradox was fucking sick. Like, I want to know. So, I mean, Justin's not listening, but maybe the guy that bought it's listening. I want to know how much was paid just for how cool it is.
For which one?
For the Paradox. It's already sold.
Oh. God, who knows?
He listed that day on Morph Market, or not Morph Market, on Instagram. He posted that it was sold and who it was sold to, probably because he got 11 million inquiries about buying it because it's hot as fuck.
What do you think about how the first Kraken is aging? To me, it actually looks worse than when it was like that cool blue color.
It's hot garbage.
With red circles. Like that was the peak snake. It looks kind of, it's still cool.
They're all aging like hot garbage, unfortunately. So that was pretty disappointing.
Yeah.
But I do like that he is showing now what they look like, because I feel like before all we were getting was the sensationalized fresh first hatch.
Well, we got a picture of the 1.0s aged up. In one of those videos is like a teaser at the end. Like, here's the 1.0 6 months later. And it already had gotten quite yellow. I don't think they look like hot garbage. I think they just look not as exciting.
Well, I mean, look at an adult highway. Garbage. It looks like hot garbage.
It sure does.
It's just like, I still want that snake all day, every day.
I know.
I'd still be posting that shit on Instagram every week.
I guess the question is like,
disappointing how they're aging and what can we put in it to help it age better besides Desert Ghost, because he's probably already putting that in there. I mean, it's just definitely something I'm gonna keep watching, following along. I mean, even if I wasn't interested in the project, everybody's following along with Canova. So if you're not, you're doing it wrong.
The project is still interesting. The project's still good. The way the adults is aging is still fine.
It's still fine comparable to other high-end projects.
It looks much better than like a GHI lesser clown.
Yeah, for sure.
You know what I mean? Like, of the Bell Complex combos. I love
and I'm working for are hot garbage as adults. I guess I came off a little harsh, but most people know they're hot garbage. I just was hoping, because it was so rich and so vibrant, that it wouldn't yellow out into hot garbage like a lot of other things I love. And so it's not unexpected, but it also is a bummer that it didn't just unicorn itself into awesomeness as an adult, you know?
Yeah, I mean, the answer might be, you know how the fucking Count Chocula or whatever, Dark Knights, the chocolate Spotnose clown is not yellow at all.
So the answer to everything is two darks.
Well, it's just chocolate Spotnose, so it's not even two darks.
Oh, okay.
It's the allelic combo. So what you need in a Wookiee is probably Wookiee Spotnose, Black Pastel, Yellowbelly, GHI Mojave. That's like 17 genes I just said, so that would be hard. But if you have the allelic combo, might not allow itself to get as yellow as just Wookiee or just Spotnose. We'll see. Pretty much donezo. There was the Morph Market membership update. We'll talk about that next week because it's sort of long and kind of boring. But Morph Market's still making moves, doing great things. Do you have any collection updates?
I have some questions for you that I thought maybe I should save for the podcast, because these usually generate pretty good conversations.
All right, hit me with a question. My favorite color is blue.
It's not about you. Sorry,
okay, so dang it.
So I have a double het clown albino that I purchased on Craigslist as a yearling, and I've had her almost a year, and she's tested negative twice. I want to say the most recent test was October. She's only like 1,200 grams. She's been a real shitty eater, which I think you can tell where this is going. So she's never been paired, and biosecurity is fine. Like, I'm not worried about anything else in that rack, but just for no reason, she pops up with a respiratory infection like a few days ago. And my initial reaction to that, this is like a $200 snake, and maybe that ethically that's stupid. My initial reaction to that is to just euthanize her rather than Boyd panel her for a third time.
Well, you wouldn't necessarily need to Boyd panel because
it sounds Nido-y.
Yeah.
But she hasn't been paired.
I would assume she has a real respiratory infection, not one come from Nido. I mean, you can slap her again. I mean, real respiratory infections exist.
Okay. So I should test her instead of just...
Yeah, no. Real respiratory infections that are not caused by viruses 100% do exist. Like, maybe there was a turd you forgot and it sat in there a little long, and so she was huffing it because they're dumb and they'll sit on their turds. I don't know. Like, I'm not...
she is one that has to have a hide to eat. So she shits in her hide quite regularly. So she could be smearing that all over her face.
Yeah, and just did something stupid and had maybe like
and she's a smearer, so it's like literally like I have to give her like a full clean all the time.
Yeah, I wouldn't assume...
So from like a business standpoint, you spend $200 on this snake. I've already spent, I mean, this is being aggressive, but I mean, if you spend $50 on shipping and a test, so $100 on testing. If I do it again, I'm at like $150 for testing. And then if I take her into the vet and you spend $200 at the vet, like at what point
does the cost benefit analysis go towards euthanasia instead of...
Correct. Like, what would you do if this was a situation for you? So what if I do test and then she tests negative? I mean, how much do you pursue it?
So this will
Does that make sense? Like, what's the correct
Yes.
ethical decision here? Or is this something we need to save for another time? I just didn't want to not talk to you on the show because then you would be like, this is shit for the show. Shut up.
I think the answer here is the answer depends on you, which is a stupid answer, right? Because some people, no matter how much the snake costs, its sort of potential breedable value is the value they're comparing the medical expenses against, not how much the snake costs. So it's okay to spend money on a snake where the cost of the procedure costs quite a bit more than the value of the snake. People do that shit on goats all the time. Goat costs $200, spend $35 a year to disease test it, and you feed it hundreds of dollars. But it makes milk and baby goats. It all sort of comes out in the wash.
Right.
Obviously, I euthanized those Russian rat snakes without giving them like every kind of permutation of antibiotic because I legitimately believed they had an untestable viral entity because I know that those exist for those kinds of animals. In this case, I don't know what you should do. She might actually, if it's just a respiratory infection because she like huffed her own turd that she stealth hid in the hide, she might actually clear it on her own if you just crank up the heat, put her in isolation, let her take a break. And then if she still doesn't resolve it herself, you could get her antibiotics. If you're testing somebody randomly, I would throw a swab in too. I'd just do that anyway. You do that anyway. But if you're not testing anybody, I don't know if I would necessarily send off a test right this second, knowing she's already had 2 negatives. But who knows? She could be positive for Nido finally anyway, just because she always had it and she was doing a good job all along. Totally possible, not very likely, but possible. What's my advice? I don't know. I would probably isolate her, give her heat, and see if she can resolve the symptoms herself for a bit, and then make a decision from there.
Okay, that's fair.
Definitely heard of snakes huffing turds and getting RIs, and they do not have any sort of...
Yeah, I mean, my quarantine rack finally just hit 90 days of not having a Nido positive snake in it. So, I mean, like, I think maybe I'll buy her a bin.
You can buy her
rather
a bin.
Than recontaminate.
I mean, is somebody going to go... I mean, you know the virus doesn't need 90 days to die on a surface. So
I know, but that's what I kept my Nido colony in.
Right, but it doesn't...
So I feel better. Even if it doesn't need that. It only needs like sunshine and Dawn dish soap and all that stuff. But it just made me feel better. I don't know, sometimes you have to do things even if they're not logical.
Right, but you're not planning on buying anything anytime soon, correct? Or are you?
Well, I'm looking at those 2 snakes I sent you. Did you not look at my messages while we were chatting?
I saw, but we were trying to do a podcast. So I was like, okay. But like, do you want to spend the money on those right this second? Or are you still wanting something? If you're going to go buy 2 more snakes right this second, then yes, go get her a bin and stick her in the fucking hall closet or whatever on a heat tape, supervised from there. But to me, a snake who's tested negative twice and going into the quarantine bin isn't any dirtier than a snake who's never been tested in their whole life and you're testing on intake 1 time.
That's true. That's fair. Yeah.
So they could all go into quarantine together basically at the same time. Because she probably just has an RI. I mean, is she like gross looking or just a little damp? You know, is she like...
No, it's like full on. She moves her head and slime oozes out the side and she just kind of...
Does she have like an impacted tooth and not RI?
I'll have to check, maybe.
Because most of the time...
She looks like a little dehydrated, but she's not. Like her humidity is correct and she has fresh water. She looks rough. She looks bad.
So if she looks that bad, I'd probably go get antibiotics. Because she probably doesn't even have RI. She probably has an impacted tooth or something. Or like a rodent bite in her mouth. And she'll need the...
She's only on person thought.
All right. I'm back to the teeth. Then.
I'll check her teeth. She's a striky, bitchy...
Yeah, they'll get stupid little abscesses inside of their mouth for no reason. And they'll drool all the time because their mouth is half open.
It was literally like she was fine last week. And today she looked like she was like on death's door. Or yesterday she looked like she was on death's door. And when she didn't eat her rat, I took that shit out to the garbage.
Yeah, that's outside. Fine. Be careful.
And then I sterilized my equipment. Because that's how bad she looked. And I was like, oh, that's fun.
Yeah, I know you probably don't want to try to find a vet appointment that's available right now. But if you wanted to, if it's like that, you probably need antibiotics to do it. So then, like, yes, there's a question there of, like, is the treatment worth it for her? I am allowed to give you permission to make the decision either way. And I know it'll hurt lots of people's feelings.
Lots of people's feelings because life matters. But no, I mean, so it's not necessarily even that. It's like, so you have to schedule your vet appointment, which is in 2 weeks, usually, if you're lucky. Not any sooner, but possibly up to 4 weeks. And then you have to, for me, my normal procedure is, even if she has negatives, I would want to do a Nido test before I got prescription medication. Because if she's positive for Nido, euthanasia is what I'm doing. So between the waiting for the vet appointment or like that during that wait time, that I would get a test, whether or not she's had 1,000 negatives and no exposure in my care. Because if it's positive, I'm not going to take her to the vet. You
Yeah,
know what I mean?
no,
So like
don't
it's
take
worth
her to the vet.
that $50. And then if it's negative, is she going to be alive by the time I get to the vet? So then, and is she going to survive the injections survive long enough getting injections to get all the way better? Or is she going to keel over before they have a chance to work? So in my brain, I'm like, is this a situation where you just euthanize now rather than putting her through all of that just to keel over in the end, or to be euthanized immediately upon receiving a positive NIDO? Like, I look at her and I'm like, she's a goner. And I wondered if that was the wrong. Am I supposed to be a bleeding heart, or am I supposed to look at her and say, she looks exactly like my other snake that died of NIDO the day before she died of NIDO?
Well, if you make the appointment for the vet and she dies before then, you'll know your answer.
Yeah.
I don't know. I think this is absolutely a moral question, and I've definitely been like,
Right. And no one can decide your morals for you. I just was wondering what your opinion was, and you've given it to me, and I appreciate that. I just
yeah,
it was wrestling it in myself because it felt immoral to immediately go, this looks like a dying snake. I should euthanize this snake rather than just watch it continue to keel over.
yes.
Rather than
I don't
trying to
think that
do
is
like
a position that
15
I would personally be able to
steps.
take a shit on, because I've done it for different animals for different kinds of reasons. Did not do everything medically possible to prevent whatever, and instead chose euthanasia because it seemed like a better option.
Yeah.
Am I a bad person? Yes. But do I care? No. Because this is like
Right.
incredibly common in agricultural circles, which I go back to that because I think that's what we should be modeling our
Model
animal
is
production
correct.
on, is being like,
Correct.
okay, like if you have a bunch of sheep come down with really high worm load, often you just worms. Often the process of the anemia, it would cost multiple times the cost of like bringing them back to a state where they're okay, and you can do that. But then you're like, oh yeah, we can also just eat them. So like maybe it's time to just shunt them off to the
Meat market.
mutton factory instead of trying to do that. And this is sort of one of the processes there that makes sense to me. Like I have some corn snakes now that are going on their like 5th week of not really eating baby corn snakes.
And at what point are you calling them failure to thrive and ending it
Exactly.
for them?
Yes.
Yeah.
So I don't think that
Yeah, I
is
mean, I know this is
amoral
like super
either.
controversial. I'm not saying necessarily like, oh, because she's a low value snake, I shouldn't give her the attention she deserves. What I'm saying is, if she's destined to die,
When is it moral to
okay,
pull the trigger
when
for
is it
her?
moral to pull the trigger? And yes, there is a business side to it. If this was a $5,000 snake, hell yes, I would be raising hell to get the vet to see her as soon as possible, or driving and sitting outside his door. But with this snake, she's not a $5,000 snake. She's a $200 snake. And that sucks that that's a consideration. But if you put in all this effort for a snake that essentially is either needing to be euthanized because she's positive for a disease, or is so sick so fast that she likely will die before she can receive medical care, isn't it better to just cut losses now and end her suffering now than to proceed down a month long of steps that are costly and may or may not help her at all? That's where I was getting at. Not that, oh, her value does play into it, but that's not the whole consideration, is what I'm trying to say.
I don't do this every day, but I do it a lot where I'm like, my hog nose was being weird post shed and wasn't eating correctly, and she was laying slugs over a long period of time. She's eating now and she seems fine. So like she could have gone septic and gone downhill, but she managed to pass all the slugs and then started eating again. And I did not go to the vet to get oxytocin, and I chose not to, knowing that could have been she could have had a twisted oviduct and was not able to pass them all herself ever. But she chose to. And that's just a situation where you make a judgment call, both financially and, how important is that animal to your collection? Is it ethical? A lot of people would argue none of this is ethical at all, but I think it's totally ethical because we're goddamn farmers. We're farmers. We're farming animals. You cannot give a single pet level of treatment to every animal every time. Sometimes you have to choose permutations of that, and that might include euthanasia in cases where there's suffering or pain.
Right. And I
Like,
mean, I gave that level of vet care to a Mojave, and she was like $100, and she got to go to the vet a few times. She had several rounds of antibiotics. She actually was nido positive, and this was before I knew better, that had been bitten by a rat, and that had lowered her immune system enough because her mouth got infected for the virus to present itself. So she had like a low grade respiratory infection and then this like effed up swollen face, and through multiple rounds of antibiotics she did not improve, and so I ended up spending a great deal more than I paid for this snake, and that her market value of this snake, never bred her, never received a return on that, also fed her, that whole time. And then there was a lot of emotional and actual time going into this animal that wasn't savable from the start. And so it's like this ethical debate, but there's also like it's okay for her to be sick and for me to say maybe it isn't. But I think it's okay for me to look at her and have seen what Nido looks like and to say this snake in the few days I haven't seen her has gone from fine to not okay. And like when my albino that laid that had Nido that passed within 2 weeks, when she laid, I was like, she looks odd. And I thought it was because she was albino, and I'd never seen an albino lay, and I'd never seen like an albino like all deflated from egg laying. And so I was like, maybe that's what it is. But I just had this like instinct, and at the time I didn't trust that instinct and investigate it further. I just was like, she kind of looks odd. She just looks bad. But I know all females that lay look bad, but it wasn't the same kind of bad. And this girl just looks bad. And so I think I just need you to tell me that it's okay to trust my instincts and to go with that. Maybe. Maybe I need permission. I don't need permission. I just need you to say it's okay to make choices based on instinct.
it is okay to make choices based on instinct, but you can
I
make,
thought it was a good moral, ethical
yeah, you can
debate.
make, I think any choice is actually fine. Any permutation, like test one more time and then decide to euthanize, test one more time and then make a vet appointment and hope she makes it, euthanize tonight. I don't, like, all of those are fine. You're the agent of her care and you're doing what's in the best interest of both her and your colony. So you're weighing both of those. And one of those considerations is not spending a couple K on a snake that maybe will die anyway. All of those are true. So what are you gonna do, Jan?
I'm going to put her in isolation. I think that I will give her a day or two to see if she's getting worse or if she's stable sick, if that makes sense, and then make a decision from there. But when my other one looked like this, she was dead in 24 hours. And I mean, I haven't checked on her this morning. She could already be dead.
All right.
Either way, the very first thing I need to do is get her out of my collection room. Even though, like I said, I feel very confident in my biosecurity, so I'm not like she's in there infecting all the other things. But I do want her out of there just because I think that that's a good first step, and then I will make an assessment from there. I'll keep you posted. I'll update next week. What about you? What's your collection update?
We had the Mystic Het Clown laid finally.
Yay! Is this her second season?
Second season
Getting
trying.
the
She didn't do anything last year. She's a 2019.
Okay.
So she didn't go till her after her second winter. So she's interesting to me besides like the morph potential because she chose not to eat for most of the season. Like, you know how most females like get really hungry? She never did that. She still chose to allow herself to be bred and made eggs, but chose never to go into like a feeding mode. I went through the records and I don't think she's eaten since January or December or something, like at all. She'd still accept locks and she still ovulated. She just didn't have very large eggs. And 3 of the 5 were sort of partial boob eggs, but still had. So, like, why did she choose to do that? I do not know.
She must have felt like she had enough reserves from the season before that you bred her that she didn't go.
Madness. But she wasn't that big. She might have been 1,800 grams or something. And she didn't get big while being bred. And then she went off food.
But
and then just still decided
all the
to
time
go.
people get clutches from 1,400-gram snakes.
Right,
So,
but what is my point here? The point is she did not do anything normal at all. At all. She did not get bigger while being paired. It made her not eat, but then still went on to breed. So there's no real moral of the story here. I just wonder if in her case Should she have been bred at all since it didn't make her get bigger like some of them do? Maybe not. Being bred didn't make her eat more.
I think the real indicator will be how she rebounds after this. I think that'll answer a lot of your questions. But I have some snakes that laid last year that have laid again this year. And all between the last time of laying and up until like almost ovulation, were not fantastic eaters, like maybe every 2 weeks. But they still laid similar sized clutches as last year, and they are back on food now and seem to actually be eating. Like they're like, oh fuck, maybe I should actually eat. I think there's a certain amount of just let them do their thing. Obviously, there are points where you as a person can look at something and be like, this isn't healthy for this snake and give her the year off or whatever. But they gain their weight back, but they're not big snakes. They're, 1,500, 1,600 grams each and laid, 6 to 8 eggs each. And same thing as last year. And they literally only gained themselves back up to like 1,500 before they laid again. And it's like, if they're okay with that and they don't look bad, they just don't look like the quintessential huge fat breeder ball python, which I think you have spoken out against, thinking like all of our ball pythons are too fat almost, our 4,000 or 5,000 gram snakes. I shouldn't be 4,000 or 5,000 grams. I don't know. I'm interested to see what their third season looks like if they end up taking the year off because they were super lean the second time.
I kind of assume that, like, if they do 2 intense years, they will have a less intense third year and they'll choose to take it off. I'll just see what she does. Since so few of my 18 to 24 month olds are even bothering to go or do anything, and then these 2.5-year-olds that are a little bit squattier are going, but not necessarily doing like super awesome. I do wonder if sort of in general, there will be no locks on 20-month-olds. They'll just be ultrasounding.
That's what I've decided after this year of experiments, because even just one lock, okay, now they're not a virgin, so they're like tainted. So if you change your mind for the next season,
I'm definitely tainted.
You've tainted all of your breeders.
Mm-hmm.
And B, if you've got 2020s, that's 20 locks from, I usually have 7 to 10 males per season. I mean, that's 20 locks for these guys. That's a lot, even if it's only one. And so, yeah, I've decided the same, that like initial locks, I probably won't. I don't feel like they mattered. I don't feel like they affected anything. And I think that next year, instead of trying initial locks, I'm just going to, maybe to my detriment, I'm just going to watch the ultrasound and then wait and give initial locks when they're above 10. Because there's some other ones that they've been in at 10 for 2 years and they've gotten many, 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 many locks over the last 2 seasons. And they have done shit for nothing. So those, to me, that's wasted energy from the male. And I just am going to watch them and see if they do anything.
Yeah, 100%. Even older than 2.5, 3.5, 4.5. They'll just sit at 10 for 100 years. And they are old enough, big enough, fat enough. The locks do not encourage them to go beyond.
Not to my experience.
Right.
I have not seen that.
So there's no reason bothering. I mean, maybe you could do like a really old female every 4 months or fucking, I don't know, just if you just feel like it. It just doesn't seem to make a whole hell of a lot of difference. A lot of times they're plowing ahead by themselves.
Well, I had the one female who wasn't even due for locks that had laid in September, that she was coming up due in mid-March for her first lock. And I thought it was maybe it was like the 1st of March, but she wasn't even due, like I said, for a lock till mid-March. And I was like, well, it's close enough. I'll just throw her on my ultrasound list and see where she's at. Bitch was sitting at 18. Mm-hmm. No locks that season.
They just do it by themselves, I think is.
And like, she's already gone and ovulated between mid-March with one lock to mid-May. She was done.
Right. We've talked about this before, but I've had so many females move times this year, like way more than the previous year to last year. I have so many females early, so early, like 4 months early, 3 months early, 2 months early. I have females that laid last year in September that are 40 now.
Yep.
I don't know how to breed ball pythons, is what I'm saying.
I don't know anything. I'm just here for the ride. Don't take anything I say as fact.
Yeah. So the advice to like start pairing your female about 7 months after she last laid, it actually doesn't actually work out. It kind of works out, but not
No, I would
40% of
say
the
if you
time.
ultrasound to be watching that female 4 months after. She may not do anything for 10 or 12 months, but you should start putting her on your ultrasound schedule at 4 months because, like I said, that one just caught me out of the blue. I was like, oh crap, she needs a lock.
Yeah,
And then I
and
just
so
did.
like when MJ, God bless him, he's always like, I don't need an ultrasound because he runs more males to female ratio, and I'm like, yeah, but I've seen the lock cards from 2 years ago and from this year, and some females will have 12 locks and then go, and this
Yeah.
year they have 2 or 3, maybe 4, or maybe 5.
I
Maybe
feel
they're
like
slow.
I still gave too many locks in accordance to my males. I still did too many locks this year. Like I could still do less. Like my males are still being overworked, even if they're fine. So I don't know how people could do that without an ultrasound.
They just run a ton of males,
And see,
just
so
a
I was
ton of
still kind of
males.
like hobbling the fence of, oh, you have to breed every month. I was definitely not breeding every month. But even if there was no progress in the females, because I'm still just learning with the ultrasound and I'm still trying to figure out how effectively I'm going to use it. If it had been 3 months since somebody had had a lock and they're a proven breeder, I was giving them another lock. And, somewhere like 8 to 12 weeks if there was a gap, even if they hadn't made any progress. And that didn't seem to do anything. And so I feel like that was a wasted lock as well. So now they've had 2 locks and they've done nothing. Or now that we're so far into the season, some of those females have had 3 locks and have done nothing. So that's 3 locks with that male that was wasted. And like I said, all my 2020s got 1. So it's like all this extra work that they've done, I feel like gained no one anything. And so next year I won't do that. I think next year I will just heavily lean on my ultrasound and wait till they do it.
Yeah, and for the people at home who don't
Unless
have
other
an
inform
ultrasound, it's totally fine. You fucking don't technically need one. But if you're running any sort of slim operation with one male that you would ideally want him to have 8 to 10 females, you
and
really need
yeah,
to
the
get an
higher end
ultrasound.
males that with no backup
Right, no backup.
yet.
The way monthly breeding goes, you will have females that will literally be bred for years if you're just monthly breeding, and they will not produce anything because none of that mattered. And it's not because they didn't like the male, it's just they just don't want to go because they just don't care. So you have to build into that monthly breeding schedule, just be like, we don't lock in the summer. Even if females could be needing locks, we just choose not to because the males need a break at some point, because they're just going to die. So you have to figure out how you want to partition that. And ultrasounds they're fucking cheap if you think about what you're getting. It's around $1,000. So fuck. You can't afford $1,000. What are you breeding if you can't afford $1,000? If any of your animals, if the collective population of animals is worth $20,000 or so, you need an ultrasound. If it's all less than 5,000, then don't get an ultrasound. I think. Oh.
Yeah, I have some snakes that are worth $5,000.
Yeah, like
Single snakes.
my collection is not that expensive, as expensive as Jana's for ball pythons, and I still think it's worth it because the group, I don't know what the group is worth. I guess I could estimate, but I think it's worth more than $20,000. So having the males not die from too much sexing, good.
Yeah, my male clown still has yet to eat.
Oh, really?
And so I'm really glad that I bought a backup because yeah,
Has he been breeding well?
he's been locked with every single thing.
All right, good job, buddy.
Yeah, I know he's a little stud and he'll eat as much as you'll give him. He'll eat smalls. He's been getting smalls because he was a weenie little guy, but he's a 2020. So he was definitely age appropriate. I was just concerned about his weight, especially if he was going to go off food. He has given so many locks and he eats and he'll eat twice a week if you let him. Like he's just a stud. I am like, I adore you. He's a little firecracker too. He like tries to get me every time. And then he gets in there with the girls and just like tackles them and like gets them, like
Does he have a name?
he's a good one.
Do the kids name
He
him?
does. No, the kids can know. My brain went blank when you asked that. He definitely has a name. Hang on. Oh, his name is Zeus
All
because
right.
my other one's Hades
Whoa, it makes perfect sense because Zeus really loves the ladies.
and really loves the ladies. So he's living up to his name.
He
I
transforms
have
into
like
a bull and then
a
spirits him
Greek
away.
goddess,
So I have a
gods and
question.
goddesses
Are you
theme
gonna
going on. Yeah.
sell the banana inchi clown once he gets back on food and keep this one, or are you gonna sell both of them and use the clown pied, or are you
So that's
confused?
the question. So if I'm not selling both clowns, then I'm keeping both clowns because I want a backup. I like that. And so I already have them. So I don't need to stress about it if I can get him the other guy feeding because he was a good breeder until he went off food and he ate like I got him at like 500 grams. And in like 3 months, he put on like 300 or 400 grams before I started breeding him. And then he did eat from September till January, but he was breeding so many girls that he lost weight really rapidly. So he was like 900 grams. He didn't eat for like 2 or 3 weeks and he got down to like 700 grams. So that's why he got pulled, is because he lost more than 10% of his weight. So if I'm keeping a visual clown that's not het for anything, I will keep them both. So there's a backup. If I'm moving into double visuals, I have a clown pied male. I don't have a backup for him, obviously, right now. I don't know. I don't know what I'm doing. Things changed. I'm getting a divorce. I had plans of buying genetic stripe clown male and running two double visual males at the same time because that sounds hot. And I was hoping to hit a enhancer G stripe to eventually add to that double het male or double visual males. So I really have to just like sit down and decide what I'm doing because I think even though I reduced a bunch of projects a year ago and redecided at the time, Jessica's lovely advice was, Jana, you're still doing too much. And I didn't listen, but I think that I might still be doing, I mean, they're two triple recessive projects is a lot. And so I've spent the money on the Clown Pie project, the Desert Ghost Clown Pie, and with the intention that I still had funds to spend on my Enhancer Genetic Stripe Clown project. But because circumstances have changed, I'm having to look at my Clown Pie, which is a lesser project of importance in my brain. I would rather be Enhancer G Stripe Clown project than the Desert Ghost Clown Pie project. Am I going to have to make some sacrifices in the clown pie things that I'd already purchased recently in order to purchase the things I had planned for my Enhancer G Stripe clown project? I think I might have to, and that's okay. I just Enhancer G Stripe clown has more of a pull to me. So I don't really know what I'm doing with all my males or what I'm doing as backups or anything. I've got to sit down and take a real hard look. I am looking at two snakes on Morph Market right now that I've got a real hard on for, and they're about 7,000 total. I have a clown pied female that's like 1,200 grams, a 2020. She has not received any locks yet, so she's still a virgin. No follicles yet either, but market value puts her at over 700 or 7,000. So I could sell one snake from an important project, probably like the best, most expensive female I have, and I could buy these two really critical to my other project snakes. I don't know. I'm having a lot of waffling, which I think is normal. I mean, I didn't expect to be getting a divorce right this hot minute, and I didn't expect to have my business plans for the year change. So I'm still just kind of reeling from the change in directions, and I think that not having two triple recessive projects is a better idea for someone who's full-time single momming it and full-time student and other things. So, and I also want the money to fund the project that I'm actually more passionate about. You have not spoken at all. Are you going to weigh in?
Yeah, I mean, the reason I was like, are you getting rid of those clown males is at the very least, you should be buying a clown het G-stripe or a Krypton het G-stripe male
Absolutely. You just
Instead.
accidentally getting that 50% G stripe in there. It feels like a waste of time to be breeding visual clown males that don't have extra.
Yeah, I mean, in your case, especially, because if you're going to hold back the females, you might as well hold back.
If you have made it to the end of this podcast, thank you. If you are seriously annoyed with our children, fuck right off. We're
No,
moms. This is what being a mom looks like. No, I'm
I'll
just kidding.
edit a ton of it out. But
She's gonna edit a ton of it out, but there's gonna be times where you hear our kids, and we're moms. That's our reality. And this week, we rather than not get an episode up, we're
we're
working
doing
with
it.
what we
Fuck
have.
it. I think my dog's outside screaming too, but fuck it. Yeah,
Yeah, I mean,
I don't
even
know
care.
what
Like,
you
this
should.
is, I'd rather do this and have noise in the background of our kids than not get together and do something that's important to both of us. So it's this or it was nothing, guys. So thank you for listening. Anyway,
Yeah.
so your opinion on what I need to do.
I feel like if you sold both of your clowns, males, you could go buy a clown het G-stripe male. Couldn't you for less than their combined sale value?
Well, I can't
You
sell the
wouldn't
one
have a backup
right now because he hasn't eaten in 6 months. He looks like trash because he hasn't eaten. I haven't put him on a scale, but I'm sure he's lost more weight, even though he hasn't bred since March, maybe February. February? He hasn't bred since February. So,
Okay, well, the male that's finishing up and a random just het clown female. Once you get her eggs and you know she's whatever, you could put together a couple thousand buckaroos
oh, you're saying
Just-
don't sell the clown pied.
just to get a new clown male to make the clown project more about Kiki
More
instead
focused
of just
rather than just
making
clown.
clowns, which any dog in the park can do. I mean, was there a male Krypton het desert ghost?
So there's
I forget what's
yes.
there.
So there's a cryptic genetic stripe, 100% het desert ghost, which is literally like an orgasm in my mouth because het desert ghost is compatible with enhancer, and then cryptic is compatible with clown, and then you have the visual genetic stripe in there rather than a het genetic stripe, which my
How much was that animal?
he's 4,500, which is
See, like, that seems
so
like
much more
a
reasonable.
bargain. That's basically
Well,
a Kiki.
I
It's
asked-
just discount.
I asked the guy up north that is working on the enhancer project if he was going to have any Kiki het enhancer for sale this year. And he said that he wasn't going to have any genetic stripe clown het enhancers. He was going to have enhancer clowns het G stripe. And the price that I was quoted was $20,000 for a male. So $4,500 for a male that I can throw to clowns, visual clowns, or visual G-stripe girls. This is a win for me. So like,
This snake has been up there for like 2 months. Have you not?
6 months. This snake has been on here.
Yeah,
and
well,
I never
I've
once
se-
saw it.
Okay. Yeah.
Never once.
To me, like, Krypton is the back door price-wise. You can still make the visual clown out of it, but you save money because the clown combo is slightly more expensive. But there's no reason not to buy this snake unless the person listing it makes you feel weird, which you decide how you feel about that.
Do you know offhand if the person we're not naming is testing friendly?
I have no idea. I actually don't know. They're just weirdos. Can I put it
We'll
that
talk
way?
about this off air. Yeah, this is a special case. We'll talk about it off there.
Right. But this would be like much more reasonable than waiting around for a pure Kiki because you already have the stuff to make a Kiki like next year if you got this male. Seems very reasonable to me. There's a female version of it on there. There's a female version of this on there too, which is
There is
also
a super pastel female version. I have a enhancer het clown 66 G-stripe female from 2021, excuse me. Who's already like 600 or 700 grams without even like aggressively feeding her at all. And so this would pair with her really well as well.
Right, but that's the age class where she might not be breeding next year.
No, but this male would still be good for her in 18 months. But I also have the double het enhancer G-stripe girl. Right now she's getting bred to an enhancer het G-stripe, but would it be better to pair to this guy? Like, does that then nullify my enhancer het G-stripe male?
Yeah, fuck that thing.
So
I
then
know you're so into
enhancer G-stripe male,
Yeah.
and could I sell my 2 clown males? And can I sell my clown pied male? Like, I mean, how much have I just sold right there that this male is now doing more things for me?
Right. You'd have to make sure he A, breeds, and B, he has only the right females. So you could keep some of those males.
Because he's already 600 grams.
Right. He's probably fucking 3 years old too. You know what I mean?
Probably. I mean, yeah, that knowing this breeder, that means if he's this size, that means that he's at least 2.
Right. Right. And it's possible, knowing this breeder, that they have like 5 more fucking chilling somewhere that they might put up for sale randomly. This is part of the like price drops that are happening. There's a lot more high-end stuff sitting longer and sitting at cheaper prices longer. Totally happening, and people who don't think it is are full of it. So yeah, the prices you were quoted for the stuff from the Great White North might not even hold up this year too, but I still think this is better than even half the price of the other one.
Well, and then this one, even so, if I did get a visual genetic stripe clown, it doesn't have the het desert ghost, which would takes years off my project, is what I'm trying to say, because it has, and to get a
Yes, it
genetic
does.
stripe clown, het desert ghost, or het enhancer, it triples the price of that clown genetic stripe. And so to pay this like ridiculously little fee, I mean, it's not ridiculous. $5,000 is a lot of money, but we're talking $20,000 for something that had possibly just the 3 hets, not even visual. And this is double visual with a 3rd het that is completely compatible with my projects and the direction that I want to go. And so it's like, I don't know. I got the tickle to buy.
Yeah, I thought when I saw it a while ago that it was a great, especially since it's Krypton and not, is it Krypton
Literally
or pure
never
cryptic?
it came up because I don't search cryptic. I never searched that. So maybe I should just be searching genetic stripe.
To me, it seems fine, especially since you're already positioned to make an actual Kiki out of him. Like, who cares? You just have to decide if this particular vendor is worth it. And then sometimes I have, weird feelings about, like, if it's a rare animal, is it worth stealth testing even if it's really expensive? I don't know.
I'm going to ask before I...
Yes. Sometimes I wonder, like, are all the big dogs all stealth testing each other and just eating the 5K all the time and just pretend that I never bought that animal and just not even pointing out that they were sent a positive? I'm almost sure that's true because of some of the comments I've heard. But yeah, I think that animal's fine. And if you, like, let's say you drop the number of females you had down a bunch, you could have just him, maybe go buy a clown het G-stripe male as his support animal for like another set of 10 females, and that's it. No more clown pied, no more straight DG, which is always a very weird choice. Like, why are you running a separate set of DG? What do I know?
Yeah, the DG I was running in my clown pied project because I'm pretty sure he's het cryptic. So it was a quick and dirty way to get...
Right, but why wasn't he in your G-stripe project?
That's a great question.
Why buy the enhancer het G-stripe when you already had a DG het cryptic? It's like...
Because I haven't proved him out.
I know, but you know what I mean. Like...
No, I hear you. It's stupid.
It's
so
fine.
Then I can sell my DG stuff and keep the females that are in the DG project because they go into my other project.
Right. They already slot in with that more complex male. Yeah, it's about sort of reducing overhead and simplifying and still trying to back up your best male with something that's approximately similar. That's why I'm like, maybe you should also get a clown het, even though they aren't the same at all. But they're at least going to come back together if 10 of the females are sired by the clown het G-stripe. And I do think enhancer is more expensive, but only because of who is selling most of them and promoting them and exporting them. Not because the average person in the US really wants to pay twice as much for an enhancer versus a desert ghost of the same combo.
I don't feel like JKR has been pricing his enhancer stuff any different than his desert ghost, and he's been actually listing it as desert ghost and just throwing in the notes, this is enhancer line. And so I think that the US, no matter what the Great White North is doing, the US is going to follow Canova. And so I am behooved to that anyway, because I'm not in Canada. And so if he is setting the tone here, then mixing it with desert ghost isn't going to do me any...
get this animal because it's desert ghost and not worry about feeling like you're shitting on your own project because you didn't pick an enhancer version. I don't know. You have enhancer on the female side.
It could even be an enhancer version, and he's just choosing to list it as desert ghost.
Exactly. Especially since
that's a question I'll ask just for funsies, but
you're gonna have to get on that stripper pole though.
A little bit.
Make these dollars.
Dollar bills, yo.
Or this is the Pacific Northwest fun fact. There are naked coffees. I mean, they're not all the way naked, but they're kind of naked. And this is something
Naked coffee is a
I,
big deal in Seattle. Don't get between the guy and his naked AM coffee.
yeah, that,
It's lingerie or less coffee.
I just, I come from a place where there are actual strip clubs that do not sell coffee. So
I've
the,
never
I,
actually gone to a lingerie or less, and I think I need to do that. I think it's on my bucket list.
yeah, well, we're going to
My husband was
go.
always very offended by them and thought that that was really trashy, so I've
Oh,
never
it is
been.
trashy, but it's fine.
But I need to check that box, I guess.
Naked coffee. Come to the Pacific Northwest for all your naked coffee needs. They probably smell better than a strip club. I think we should give them credit for that. Any more collection updates?
I mean, I have got my Lemon Blast Het DG clutch that just came out of the egg. Oh, sorry, Spinner Blast clutch. Anyway, and there's something funky running around in there, so I got to figure out not like funky bad, but funky extra. There's another gene in there that I got to figure out. Then I cut my banana NG clown to supposedly het clown, and the 5 eggs, no clown.
Oh, fuck.
So she was listed in the collection that I bought as disco or het clown.
That must be disco then, I guess.
So when it comes out, we'll see if there's fire in some of the combinations. Some of the bananas looked crazy bright, so I'm assuming that's what it is. And I need to look through my notes and see if this was the one that I had predicted to be
Disco?
disco or het clown, because I wrote down which one I thought was, and then but I have them all listed how he gave them to me, which was disco or het clown. So we'll see. I need to go through my paperwork and look, but I was a little bummed. I mean, I could be wrong, but I don't. I mean, that's hard to mistake a clown, but I've never seen one in the egg in real life. So, I mean, there's like a 1% hope that I'm wrong, but that's kind of a bummer because I was expecting to hatch my first visual clown with that clutch. I have other opportunities in the incubator right now, but that sucked.
Next time.
Yeah, but 4 out of 5 are bananas, so that's like, okay, well, you'll sell. It's fine.
I still have not cut any ball python clutches, so I don't have anything really exciting to report there. Because my season is tight. So tight. Yeah, I don't have much else to report. We're going to have an episode next week about stuff. Probably snake related. Maybe reptile related.
Maybe. Yeah, there's no new like Brigarden coming out or anything, so that'll probably be reptile related.
I can't wait until whoever the actor they cast, the Asian actor for that, because that's my cup of tea. I'm gonna just put it that way.
For whose spot?
I have no idea. I don't care. I'll watch it. I just
Next
saw
season's
some of the promotional images.
Penelope. It was supposed to be Penelope and Colin this next season.
Blech. I do not ship them at all. Does that make me a bad person? How do you?
It's like it's one of the later books, and so it's odd that they're choosing to do it next, because in the series, it's like way later. Their story is way later, and like everybody else is already hooked up and married. For me, I'm like, it's too early. It's too early to make it extra pathetic.
Right. It would almost. I haven't read the books.
Their
by
story
the way.
was a little painful for me. It's like, ugh,
yeah,
ugh.
Don't spoil it. But I don't ship them now because I don't find Penelope. She hasn't been written to be very likable yet. She's gotten worse, and so like I guess this is her redemption season, or something. So they moved it forward to make her more likable after she has like a bad moment.
I really like her
because of the books or because of the show.
Before I ever read the series, she was my favorite, and I liked her hidden life. I like that
she's much more likable in the first season.
Genius. Though. She's supposed to not be likable in this season. She's supposed to be having like a character arc, and in the series, her character arc, like she's supposed to come into her own. So I hope that they still do that, where she like matures and she's been into enough seasons that her mom quits putting her in those awful pink dresses and citrus colors. She's supposed to mature, and she's also supposed to like thin out, and she gets more pretty, and she starts wearing prettier clothes that she's chosen for herself because she doesn't care anymore about getting married. And so she kind of is like a coming of age story, because she's like passed through the gauntlet of seasons, and then she doesn't have to like, everyone's like, oh, no one's ever going to marry Penelope, so she doesn't have to try anymore. And not trying helps her like find herself publicly rather than just in secret and writing. Anyway, this doesn't matter towards the broadcast.
Spoiler alert.
Spoiler alert.
Yeah, it might be that Netflix is
happens.
trying to finish with this one potentially. I don't know. I don't know why you would.
Oh, it's entirely
get rid of your cash cow, but it's okay.
They won't. Maybe they're just trying to go in order instead of how the books do it, because Colin's number 3, so they might just go in order. Although What's Her Butt wasn't the first. Never mind.
Yeah.
Scratch that.
Babs Bridgeton, the intermission.
Yeah.
We'll see you guys next week, I guess.
It's possible.
Yeah, I'll have to edit this fucking monstrosity together. We talked for a long time, and many interruptions.
Yes, we did.
Occurred.
Sorry.
No, it's all right. All right. Bye, guys.
Bye.
Meow.
Where you go, I don't take. I'll take off, so on the way.
Good job.